Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
You can't have a 5-minute intro, they said. You'll kill them, they said. They won't survive, they said. Well, where are they now? In a private prison paid for by Epstein. You're muted, Raf. Come on, get louder. Mach mal lauten.
Welcome everyone. Other channels have like a 15-minute intro just to gather people, for the stream.
Yeah, it's just really different though because they want this to be like a tight jazz band, and I feel that like we should be like a Japanese like acid jazz Cassiopeia 20-person experience. But really, it's just like we're hanging out. It's like,
I,
what time is
I
it
like
right now?
that, but there'd be plenty of time too. Japanese jazz is pretty chill from what
Pretty
I've heard.
based. It's true.
There's
I
like
mean,
a group
it's
called Kyoto Jazz Massive, I believe. They're pretty amazing. And there's a few others, I guess. So that's
I'm a
good
bit of a
stuff.
classicist when it comes to Japanese music. I like Cassiopeia. It's pretty good. Have you heard them? They're basically all Mario Brothers music is a ripoff of Cassiopeia. You can kind of just start with that. It's like that vibe. Not like the 80s kind, like the modern racing stuff. Well, wait, but we had a whole thing to show. I wanted to talk about. I wanted to ask you how you were doing and what time it was, but I guess it doesn't really matter because the space-time continuum is crazy. I was calling it after dark. It might be before morning, but I think what we'll do is this one will be after
Indeed.
dark, and the next one we'll do. You know what I mean?
Well, it's always after dark somehow, no?
Yeah, but it's always darkest before the Batman. So this is my idea also because like you thought the flag looked a little too precocious. So I'm trying to spruce it up. I hope that this is we should introduce this into the Österreich. I think that Austrians should consider this flag. Just invert it, make it purple, and see if that should be an ideology into itself. Invert it and make it purple, right?
Yeah, you're giving me a few ideas. There could be a few artists, like, for example, Friedensreich Hundertwasser. I'm not sure how famous he is internationally. He built, for example, the incineration plant for Vienna. Luckily, he did, because that's like one of the few buildings that actually looks nice. Hundertwasser. So the artist name he gave himself was Realm of Peace, 100 Water. That's his name.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like any name like that will be intimidating to an American. There is a Monty Python about that, actually. Monty Python, German composer. Yes, it is Johann Gamapol Putty de von Osfern, Schlepden, Schlitter, Crashrenbon, Fried, Digger, Dangle, Dungle, Burstein von Nacker, Thrasher, Vappel, Banger, Horowitz, Tickle, Lensig, Gander, Notter, Naughty Spell, Tinkle, Grandlick, Grumblemeyer, Speltelwasser, Kirstlick, Himmelbeißen, Bahnwagen, Gutenben, Bitte, ein Nürnberger Bratwartel, Gersberten, mit Schweinmach. This is basically why it's hard for us to remember composers' names and any of the names of Austrians. It's not like you guys are just like Hans.
Well, you're lucky that, not just the English royal family, but I guess all the relevant Americans today anglicized their originally German names. Isn't even Trump like Trump or whatever, from what I heard. And
Yeah. 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 999999999. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. We got to work on the names thing. We could probably come up with some easier. This is why it'd be so easy. But okay, so the point of this was to show that we have on Comency.at access to the Neuropa page. You can check out from Comency.at, and you can check out all of the links that we're showing you right now. And here they are in a list. We're going to do a research bit right here. We're going to go through these, go through some new order stuff, and then we'll talk about health, and there's some liberty too. Sounds like a good plan? Okay. So the first link is from the history. It's Mongol invasion in Russia and Europe.
yeah, so this is a great one. Again, a presentation, I believe, by Gleb Nosovsky. If you zoom in a little bit or skip in, we can see, I believe, this is a radio interview. Again, I cannot recommend these enough because these are literally like 40, 50-minute segments made for radio, so very accessible. I believe here it's not Gleb Nosovsky, but like one of the compatriots of the new chronology. I forgot, he's not running the museum, but something related. And here they basically talk about the idea of the Mongol invasion and how, I believe, even with DNA evidence and other ideas, they just show that this is unlikely that it actually occurred. And of course, Mongol invasion is such a very, very common trope that's reused everywhere. So I can just recommend everyone to take a look at this and see whether it really holds up. And in general, again, Serge Baba, Bello Baba, has made all of these amazing AI translations. They're really easy to listen to. The AI voices are quite well done. You can differentiate them well. It's very clear. The language, I think, is very nice. All of those interviews. So, and especially these short ones, they're really a great introduction because, again, they're like made for radio. You have some callers at the end usually. You have some animations also. So, yeah, highly recommend it.
And so, did you have an opinion on the Mongol invasion, like more as like a Uyghur Tartar sophisticated move, or that this is like a flamenco history rewrite? What did you gather?
Well, the main point for me here is simply that it could not have been the Mongols. And even as also David Ewing Jr. showed, if you look at all the pictures from the supposed Mongol capital, there's like literally nothing there. So for me, it's just mainly about dismantling this idea of them being a boogeyman. What it isn't exactly, I'll not speculate or talk about too much. The first step in all of these things for me is just to, I guess you would say, falsify whatever the official chronology pushes on you. And of course, what they like to reuse as tropes in any and all kind of media. And then here just check and see, does it really make sense that, the threat is always from the East and they always look like current day Mongols? Could it be that this is just another obfuscation in history?
What I find really kind of interesting about it is that you have in the West and in the East, the farther you go, two cultures that are living through a confederated tribal system of nomadic peoples that have temples that are tabernacles and that they're living in yurts, right? They're living in teepees or they're living in yurts, right? They're worshiping in giant, essentially, teepees or yurts. And eventually, you even have nomadic people brought in from the Romani that do circus work inside of giant teepee yurts, right? Temple acts, right? So there's something to that. And the idea that the culture isn't necessarily allowed to build and stay in places with a lot of foundation, that they have to move on because they're moving cattle, they're moving energy around, right? There's a nomadic people. So I think there's
Or even
precedent for
as
that.
David brought up to me recently, because you mentioned this, and reminds me, of course, of the so-called Gypsy or Romanes people, and that you also have them in South America, and they have very similar traditions and so on. It's still too much data for me to make a coherent storyline out of this, but first it's just to point out the holes in history.
There's a whitewashed video that I would recommend, actually. Everyone check out. The Odd Compass did. But it has a pretty decent kind of background. I think this is one of the closer things. It's more recent things in terms of at least mainstream stories about how the Romani were migrating from West India after a war. And they found their way from India during the Ghaznavid Empire into a place where they were needed, right? You had to have Bronze Age workers. You also had soldiers, and they had someone to keep the peace during the Crusades between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. So it was in the best interest of a lot of these king states, right? These royal monarchical states to have
now that
gypsies.
you mention it, where there could be an intersection is with the idea of the Indian principalities, where you have maps, I guess, up to maybe even 1900, where you see like India is completely fragmented, whether that's a true map or not. But just the idea that, there could have been conflict, or let's say, for lack of a better term, Dutch East India Company or whatever, Dutch East India, North, East, Southwest,
Exactly.
that they would be doing some kind of deals there or wars, and then naturally you would have all kinds of exodus for various reasons. So this may actually be some kind of an overlap between official mainstream history and alternative chronology ideas.
Right. I mean, so even with like the official history, there's enough precedent for this that 1,000 years ago, the Ghaznavids are pushing a battle into southeast
Well, a
India.
thousand. If you ask me now, it sounds more like 200-300 years ago, but all right.
Sure, yeah. But I think that there's enough precedent that during the times that we consider the Crusades, right? Like, so whenever if the idea that Jesus was 1,000 years ago, right? Like, I'm okay with that. Like, not 2,000, but 1,000. This makes sense that
I think that's still
simultaneously.
too much, but all right, let's go with
Yeah,
that.
okay. I mean, I think there are characters that we associate that are in the 17th century Jesuit period and the 15th century. I do think a lot of things that we think of as happening 1,300 years ago happened 300 years ago. Because I agree with you there, but I think it's reasonable to say at some point the Ghaznavid Empire, regardless of when you're saying this happened, it's long enough ago that it's at the same time that we're saying the Crusades happened. So because of the Crusades, it's really valuable because Ghaznavids don't want to pay a jizya tax to the Muslims. They're ending up working for the Christians. Just because they don't want to pay the jizya tax, and because the Christians will pay them to fight against. And these are not just peacekeepers
Oh
or
yeah, wait, because
police,
the
right? There's
Christians or whoever the Dutch East India Company represents, they
right,
certainly have Indian soldiers. Like you
yeah.
hardly find anyone with
So
white
they have to
skin in
pay it.
their armies.
They're paying for the soldiers, right? They're paying to have soldiers come, and the soldiers, they're coming from a war torn place, right? So it's perfect. Like they need. Not only are they paying soldiers, these are families that are not necessarily all soldiers. A lot of them are like metal workers, jewelry workers, textile workers, right? So they're able. This is eventually how a lot of the traditions of chainmail are brought to Europe because they used to make a suet, this beautiful fabric that women had, but they had made it super fine for women. They didn't make it quite as fine for the Europeans. But they also, eventually they became kind of accepted, like saints even, and having their own religion. The Catholics allowed them to exist as their own almost order, right? And because they didn't make them pay the jizya tax, they thought, okay, well, this is the best deal. We'll work for them. And a lot of them ended up fighting for Christians and then keeping the peace because afterwards, when the Muslims ran the cities, they had, like Maimonides in Spain, and he was a Jewish person, and they would have Christians and everything pay a tax, and they were all allowed to exist. But when the Christians took over, it was like, we're gonna, like it was pretty bad. Like, let's be real. Like, there's the Spanish Inquisition, a lot of destruction. You could not be Muslim, and eventually it was hard to be a gypsy. But first, they had to have the Muslims keep the peace. So like, okay, if someone in the street is prejudiced, we assume it's because their religion. At least these people are outside of that, and they have a very interesting religion that's based on karma. So they can't be forgiven, right, for doing something like that. They have to actually follow their own values and honor. So they made very good police for the medieval Christians. And that's also why there's a major prejudice, I think, against Romani, because of the fact that they were essentially like peacekeeper police at certain points. And even into the more recent time, like 300 years ago, like I think is when a lot of European families started using and exploiting Romani for human trafficking, for drug, etc. Like any sort of licensing of crime. They're like, okay, here's a nomadic group of people. We're going to exploit that group of people. And so anytime people associate it, they're like, wow, look at all these
Actually,
horrible things happening in Greece.
yeah,
You're like, well, why are you letting the Romani do that? It's obvious that you're exploiting them and making them do it. Like, to me, it seems pretty clear.
that's definitely a good point because you have these strange stories associated with them, many positive in terms of, being great artists and so on. Even today, many so-called Romani in Europe are great artists and
Yeah.
musicians.
Yeah.
But then you also
Brilliant.
have the dark
Brilliant.
side.
Sure.
You have the dark side, but you mentioned as correctly, like who put them even up to it, or how did that enter their quote-unquote culture even? That's an important and
Yeah. You'd
interesting
imagine,
question.
like, what do you think that the British government just like allow you to exist without a reason? What it's just like it just blows my
Without
mind the
trafficking
way,
for them.
like, what do you
Actually,
think's going on in your bits?
wait, Andreas. I think I see a pattern.
My bad.
No,
I
later we're
shouldn't
gonna
laugh.
briefly, maybe not talk about it too much, but briefly bring up the current event stories. And it's just what you said. Would they allow you to exist if you're not, let's say, quote unquote, dealing for them in one capacity or another? Probably not, or at least they wouldn't allow you to get rich, and we have many stories of that currently. So here
Oh,
we
but
have
the Hacker Prince, Stellium 7.
something based, talking about alternative chronology, alternative ideas. This is a really great interview with
There he is.
Stellium 7.
I just got to see this. I was really excited. I'm glad that you put this out, Mike. Good job, Stellium 7. Everybody, if you haven't already subscribed, go like this video like I just did right now and watch this video. Check out all of his work. You guys know, just for a background story, this is like the first hacker ever arrested as a kid. It's like this is the war games in real life person. And we've climbed through mountains that are actually fossilized elephants together. So, gotta hype this man pretty hard. But yeah, this is a pretty cool
And
thing.
as I like to say, from my point of view, maybe also due to his astrological disposition, as some might claim, in my view, one of the most diligent researchers that I'm aware of,
Yeah,
trying to cover all angles
he
and
works super
really
hard.
giving a clear picture, as clear as it can be. So if anyone comes around and is like, oh, these giant trees, giant whatever, it's a joke. Sure, there is pareidolia. You can make things up. There's AI today. But, show me a mountain where you have, I believe by now, 30, 40 plus exact anatomical correlations verified by a chiropractor who is super diligent not to suffer from pareidolia and so on. Or you have the heart stones. Here he's mentioning them again as well. They got measured out, and they also have, I don't know how many exact correlations to a heart, and even a renowned heart surgeon complimenting him and saying, this is a great discovery.
I mean, to be fair, also, he started out kind of as a joke, as a self-aware. He's like, hey, it's self-aware pareidolia. Like, hey, isn't it be funny? Like,
Yeah.
that kind of looks like an elephant. We should, like, see how much it looks kind of like an elephant.
Exactly.
And it gets to a point where it's like, well, this looks kind of like an elephant, kind of a lot. Like, let's do a metric of how much it's exactly the same. How about let's climb through it and actually get samples of it. Let's compare it to fossils. And at a certain point, that's a little more than just pareidolia. It started out kind of as a joke. It became way more than that.
That's what it is. So basically, any groups related with that, I want to see them sharing this type of information above almost, maybe not anything else, but alongside anything else that has an equal measure of diligence and accuracy behind it.
It's
and honest
funny
effort.
because it's true. Right. That's basically the thing. It's pretty crazy. I mean, yeah, I definitely recommend checking out all of his work. Also, go to Stellium 7's channel and you can watch a number of videos on a bunch
Yeah, and
of
if
subjects.
perchance you have a friend who is German and doesn't want to watch things in English but needs to know about this, you can send him to my channel. I translated the first 2 parts of his work. So
very cool.
We got that also. If you maybe just search Stellium 7, I don't think there's a playlist for it because there's only 2 videos.
You need a German translation playlist. That's what it's got to be, like a dub.
Yeah, so here we have Teil 1 and Teil 2, so the 2 parts, 1 hour and half an hour, I believe, for a basic introduction. And at least within some particular groups, it actually got shared, so I'm quite happy about that.
Everybody, if you speak German, this is the version for you. Yes, dubbing the videos in your language. Very good.
Yeah, and these are still human dubbed by me in this case. Soon maybe we're going to do a run with AI. It's getting to a point where it's actually decently usable for these kind of purposes.
An attempt towards a chemical conception of ether, work by Mendeleev. What is this you found here?
So here I didn't really find much more information about it than this yet, and I'm not even sure how you got to that because it's not. Oh, yeah, right. No, it is on the proper order. Thank you. Apparently
make me seem
he
weird.
was giving the first chemical, I wanted to say alchemical table, and this is just a remnant information, but that apparently he was concerned with the ether, and just to give a pointer that the ether afterwards was apparently factored out. And just according to this random post I saw, ether was seen as element 0, which is quite interesting, but
That
I couldn't
makes a lot of
find any representation of it graphically, but I just found this reference that actually he was considering or thinking about ether, and he was the originator of the chemical table, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, did he come up with a periodic table? At least he came up
Right,
with like
periodic
the
table,
mass.
yes.
He at least came up with the periodic mass law. right? Like the laws. So that's the reason why ether
Well, the
would be
thing is,
zero. That's
just
the
like
interesting
Newton
idea.
and so many others, he probably came up with lots of things, but how many survived the Jesuit filter? Not too many.
Oy vey. Let me see here. This is a periodic law,
Yes.
chemical career, often views a process of maturation of his main discovery, atomic weights. Yeah, so the idea that atomic weights are based on ether being zero is a duh. I have never thought of that. Of course it has to be. That's crazy. Well, that makes me want to do the Michelson. I spelled it wrong. It's MK, isn't it? No, Michelson. Michelson Morley experiment. Got to look at this. Everybody tells you that it's, I don't think anybody talks to you about the Michelson Morley experiment. If they do,
Well,
just walk away
especially
slowly.
in the Earth shape discussions, they're always referencing this. Please walk us through it. I should know, but please walk us through.
It's not a huge deal. It's just that they like to pretend that this disproves ether, and really it kind of proves ether because it shows that the experiments we're doing. This is kind of also where people talk about dark matter and all these other explanations for what we're seeing. They tried to suppose that there must be something that is affecting light waves, and if there's nothing affecting the light wave, then we've clearly disproven ether, right? Like I suppose a medium permeating space that was through to be the carrier of light waves. The experiment was performed between April and July of 1887. So they basically tried to say that they didn't produce the effects they wanted to produce. So there is no such thing as ether, but really that's because they're taking into account the idea that there must be something else that exists, right? So some sort of a dark matter. So it's the dragon into the dinosaur kind of thing with ether into dark matter. It's like, no. Your parents were wrong. My parents were wrong. I
Yeah,
invented the truth.
they were completely wrong, but now we have something that, we can't even grasp, somewhere far removed in space. We can't
Oh my
reach
god.
dark matter.
Did you
It's,
bring up our
it's
favorite
pretty
lady?
magic.
Is she in the thing? Did you bring
Oh,
up the
I'm not
science
sure.
lady?
Maybe, I mean, let's see what she's up to. I didn't see her recent videos.
I've been watching it too. What's her name? Oh my god.
Sabine
Physics.
Hossenfelder,
Thank you.
the
No.
physics lady.
The physics lady, dude, she's just wild. All of her pictures now, look at this. They're just like face down. Oh, we're screwed. Oh, the same old crap. She's like cursing in videos now. She said the F word recently. I think she thinks she's like a rap star. I don't know. Like she's out of control. It's really exciting. Where was the one she did? There's no Stockholm. She just wrote this like okay. She's like saying all these people that are making up physics are liars because they're just using papers that can't be proven so that they can keep their jobs forever, basically.
Oh, don't tell me theoretical physics is 95% a scam.
She's straight up. She's literally become. She's like, it's just like we predicted. How could you not get to this point, right? This is where you have to end up. Wow, it's just crazy. It blows my mind. I don't even know what to say about it. Same old crap. This is, I think, the one where she cursed and everything. She's wearing like a star jacket. Stars amongst the stars. What is she trying to? And she's trying to out these two guys. She's saying Carlo Rovelli doesn't need tests, so his experiment is nonsense. And that she tried to tell him that, and that he doesn't care because he thinks she's a crazy lady who just wants testing of things and doesn't understand it. When she totally understands it, man. That's what she's trying to say. Which is basically everyone I know talking about physics at this point. And she calls this video Why Physics is Dying. Right?
Based.
I know. It's like, come on, lady. Like, I'm gonna buy her a beer. I don't know what else to do because she's German, right? Like, that's what she just says stereotype. I think that's okay. What about this is Der Catalog. Well, that's
Yeah, so this is something
title.
I randomly found. So here, stay on this for a second. This says Spätgründerzeit, which the direct translation would be late founders time. So there's the founders time and then the late founders time for Vienna. Interestingly, why they, founded it.
So
We
lately.
spoke about this earlier, and also with the idea that the supposed last emperor or last relevant emperor, Kaiser Franz Joseph of Austria, only began tearing down the Linienwall, which was the Starfort Wall in 1874, about that, which to me, is kind of late if you want to obfuscate history, and again begs the question, when or how was Vienna or Europe repopulated? What really happened? When did the powers really shift? So anyhow, what you have here is just like from, I guess, this is this is actually from an interesting place, which is the Technical University Vienna, and it has to do with Denkmalpflege, which is called monument care. I'm not sure what is the proper term in English. And of course, they give out these nice drawings and so on. And what you can basically do here is just have a analysis or description of the particular art style associated with what they call late founders' time, which is conspicuous, at least in the sense that they have extremely high windows and doors and walls overall. So at least if it were for mere practicality, as we are building today, nobody today is building that tall. And then, of course, you have older pictures with these tall individuals. And I'm always asking myself, could these buildings still have been built for people that simply are at least a little bit taller than we are on the regular? And even up to this day, the most beautiful buildings in Vienna in different districts actually are these buildings, which are existing at least since about 1900. The official timeline, when you enter these buildings, they often put a mark right at the entrance, which usually says something like 1904 and so on. And recently they've been renovating these buildings, and they always make sure that you neatly, nicely see the number right when you enter, which of course, again, then makes me ask the question, well, could it be that maybe it's already been there for 100 years extra, or, what's going on exactly? I'm not really sure how you could properly date such a building today. Yeah. And of course, you have different buildings, as I always like to bring up. The building I went to high school in, which was supposedly built in only 3 years by an architect that apparently built everything, in Germany and Austria and so on, almost at the same time, very rapidly. Yeah, just makes it seem that also they're maybe not telling the whole story. And this is mainly about architecture. There's 19 pages, as I can see. But anyone who wants to study the art style and so on, they can take a look at this document and maybe even recognize similar buildings they have in America. And there it'd be interesting to see what time they're dating it to there, because I think you have these type of buildings as well.
Yeah, things to look out for would be Doric, Ionic, Corinthian, Tuscan, composite types of pillars, I would say, in architecture. Those are the schools that you'll look for and things to that
Although what I
degree.
also have to say, so not to to give the whole information that I have, as limited as it is, I had a conversation with a professor, Dr. Wohlmeier, Heinrich, his first name is, I believe. Heinrich Wohlmeier, he was a bank director. He was involved, his father, his family was involved both with the Austrian People's Party in, I believe, maybe like 70s or something. And then also even one of his great-grandfathers or grandfathers was a high judge within the Austro-fascist time, as we would call it today, which was the time, I believe, between about, if I'm not lying right now, what would it be? 20-something and 30 until the Nazis came. So anyhow, political family and also a builder family ever since maybe 1900 or something. And he told me, when I asked him about his old architecture, he said he remembers that his grandfather told him that he got an order from the mayor of Vienna to actually do like a program for not homeless but jobless people, and like to construct decorations for Viennese buildings. So there it may also be that at least some of these decorations actually are kind of new or around 1900. And I also read online that there were like catalogs during that time where, I guess, homeowners or builders or whatever could order these kind of things. And so we don't have to, mystify it more than it may be, or it may be part. But even if that's the true story, I'm like, why would they be ordering these nice, beautiful things at that point? And at least in official mainline history, Wassily Kandinsky, about the spiritual and art around 1900, a theosophist supposedly, already back then was like, oh, consciousness is declining, things are getting ugly, what are we doing? But at least still we had, these nice decoration things and so on, which today we don't have. So even just that societally is, I think, an obvious decline.
Yeah. It's also weird because like there wasn't a term fascism, in the 19th century. Like that wasn't a thing yet. There had been Roman fasces, but that was totally different. Like the ancient idea or even the theatrical idea, like the dramatic the drama the romanticized 19th century idea of the Roman Empire was free fresh water fountains. Like it's a completely different visual than what emerges when you try to build something. So it's also important that you use that word like Austrofascism, right? Like, which is like, what does that even mean also? But it makes kind of sense because it's like maybe it's with more coffee. I don't know. But it's this ideological fervor that goes beyond just this idea to like collectivize. And that's like an emergent term, like it's an emergent 20th century term that comes from socialists, right? That are just trying to infer a difference between their social services, which are supposed to include control of the industries, control of the water, right? Which becomes a bigger issue.
But it's interesting because, how collectivized or individualized would different religions consider to be in their mainline understanding? Because today they often reference Islam with collectivism. And then now that you mention the collectivization of public works and water supply and so on, up to this day, I guess it's the same in the US, all of these main electricity companies and water supply companies, they are basically owned by a select few political/economic actors. And they, I guess, officially, well, collectivized. Then it also depends how you use that term. So it's a public appliance or public utilities, but owned almost in a private sense or by a private elite class ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but they're generationally invested. That's the other question. Are they
Yes.
generationally invested in the success of that business and that state?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, I guess it depends on how high the payoff is from the next level up. And if they're like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the island, who cares if my country, goes to whatever, which is apparently what
Yeah.
some political actors are willing to sacrifice readily.
So we're talking about 4 to 5 meters of flood in Florida, right? I'm sure that's made the world news. That's pretty. I'm sure you guys are hearing about that.
Yeah, as I had mentioned, only a month ago you had it in Lower Austria, heavy flooding after very suspicious drought for a month. And now we have it in Florida. So yeah, small resets at a time, if you ask me.
Dude, it's crazy. So the Cumans.
Oh yeah, so I had brought them up before. These are just, let's say, extra links we can also kind of skip over because I don't have too much to say about it. Here, just bringing up again that David said at one point, this could actually be the origin of my last name, Kemensi. That this is actually like Kumansi or whatever, or I don't know how you would like trace it back. I found records of my last name, as I had mentioned previously, in at least official mainline documents from the Austrian archives going back to the so-called monarchy. But as I had also mentioned, there is even a single document which is supposedly a list for military commanders or some kind of military index. And the funny thing is that in the same document, you have my current last name, as one of the officers, let's say. And then at the very end of the document, you have someone who's like a military secretary or whatever signing the document. And literally his last name is my mother's maiden last name. That was already like, what a kind of joke is this? Because I was just for fun, searching on the document. I was aware of the ones with my name, which is just for fun. Let's search for my mother's maiden name. And I was like, are you joking me? Were there like only 100 families in Austria? How is that even possible? And the names
Weird.
are not very common. Neither mine nor
Right.
my mother's maiden name. So it's kind of curious.
That is a strange sync.
And in any case, even though these documents may not necessarily be trusted, and there's so many factors to check for, but one of fun things everyone can do, just go to your local state archive wherever you're living, whatever country or state you're in, and
Dude, that
see
looks
what they
like
have
flawed right
digitized,
there. That
and
looks
look
like.
for your name. Huh?
Is that look like flawed to you? Flawedzilla? I don't know. I see flawed right there.
I'm not sure if I know who you're talking about.
Oh man, flawed. Hold on, just for everybody at home. This is flawed, man. This is flawed Zilla right here. I see him
So
right
someone
there.
says go deeper into small resets. Well, just watch the news. You can see.
Yeah, I mean, like if they erase, if they erase your culture, like, do you remember where Tatarstan is? It's a country right now, but it's like a state.
Right.
You know,
It's
this
kind
is
of
what we're
cute what
doing.
they made of it. Yeah.
It's, which I hate to say because I really love Tatarstan today. It's like got some of the most beautiful architecture, like it's beautiful culture, beautiful people. We've had some really great Tartars on the show to talk about it, and I would love to help Tatarstan be even more free.
So just to clear up how linguistically that could happen, are you talking about me? Am I using a fake accent? I'm not sure if
This guy, no, he's actually from New
I
Jersey.
could.
All right, just let down the charade, Raph.
Yeah, I'm actually from New Jersey.
And all
I've
I'm,
been,
and all I'm
I
actually,
mean, I
yeah.
stayed in New Jersey for like over a month in total, so you may have a point there.
Oh my god,
Like,
it
I'm
all
not
comes
joking.
out. His real name is Tony, and he's from New Jersey. We pay him extra because he went to Juilliard, so he could sound like this. Oh my god, no, he's real. I'm sorry.
Oh no, yeah.
That would be really cool, though. Oh. All right, well, the Cumans are Tartars, but they look like Rus. Everyone can wonder about that. Here's my theory. It's not a blood thing. It's a linguistic cultural thing, right? Because if you conquer people, if you get kind of xenophiled, like you're interested in going to other places, you're an extroverted culture, you know, you mingle. There's going to be a lot of different kinds of people. And I think that's kind of the beauty of this. There probably are a lot of different kinds of people. Some of them might have been Asian. The other versions of this story is this idea that there were conquered people that were put in the front lines, and so they were the ones to die first. And the ones that you see are like these psychotic Mongolian people that were really sacrificing themselves because that was a psyop. Like they're gonna say, "Hey, we're not gonna kill your wife and your child, but you need to go to the front lines and disembowel yourself. Disembowel yourself when you get to the front lines, so that everyone's like, "Oh my god!" I mean, they're gonna do that to themselves. What the hell are they gonna do to us?" Right? Like that was a thing, right? But who's to say that that's what they did to the Tartars in this particular situation?
Yeah, I'm not ready to espouse a timeline yet. I'd rather just stick what I think is not correct.
Fair play. Well, here's the conspiracy RS video time after time.
Oh yeah, so this is just pointing out, I guess, mainly the Statue of Liberty, which suspiciously, auspiciously, is obviously built on like a star fort.
Yeah.
And there's, too many other things to say about it, but definitely cool to check out. And I guess obvious star fort. And even here, I mean, even the mainline history is strange. They say like some Freemasons or France gifted it to them. Then you have these strange, like, I don't know, I'm going to say the wrong thing now, but Ishtar connections or God knows what, like what kind of a quote unquote pagan symbol is this really? Like what's going on?
It's great. What? You don't like it? I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that it's got her legs closed, right? Because if you think about no, is that too weird to say? Gosh, Colossus of Rhodes. You know the Colossus of Rhodes statue. This is the way. If this was my America, this is how we would do it. It'd look a little bit more like Pepe because I'm crazy, but it would be the Colossus of Rhodes. The boats would have to pass underneath the nuts of Wall Street's bull, right? That's the bulls of Wall Street, right? This is the
Right.
original goal they wanted to have the original statue, the Colossus of Rhodes, and so instead they have this pregnant woman statue, which is kind of weird. The Whore of Babylon is pregnant and unchained, right? Pregnant Statue of Liberty. Make sure moderate search is on. Gotta be really careful these days. But yeah, if you kind of see, like, she's carrying, you know what I mean? She's carrying. She's come. That's the interesting thing about the Statue of Liberty is that she thick right now because she about to burst, right? And look at it. She's like got all these people inside of her. right? So yeah,
Yeah, I
there's
mean, I brought up the reference before about Whittier, which was from a commenter on one of David's videos. And he said that in Whittier, he asked a guy who seemed to know everything, and he told him, yeah, in about 1900, the Templars took over these castles and then demolished them. And before, the quote unquote Moors were living there. You can make of that what you will.
mm,
And
well,
when was this? Actually, it would be interesting. When was this supposed to be put there? Let me guess. 1874.
is it before that?
I
Because
mean not the
1874.
Colossus. I mean the Liberty. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's after the 1874 because 1874 is the Great Depression, right? And so it would probably, I'm assuming, be after Carnegie, 1886.
hmm
So 1886. So Carnegie. So in the Gilded Age, America had a Great Depression and the world did in 1872, kinda 1871, 1872 started, and it continued on until 1875, 1880. But really, it was done by 1875 because a millionaire, or at least a half a millionaire, a semi-millionaire, right, had Carnegie had invested in buying a bunch of machines to smelt steel, and all of a sudden, steel became this commodity that was available for the new industrial revolution. So by 1875, 1878, the whole world was under a new steel renaissance because he'd made steel so cheap. And even though his machines would break, he would just buy new machines and keep the machines running and keep people paid 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah. So just on a side note, anyone who can do this and not get halfway depressed like I do, you can play the most recent iteration of Anno. I believe it's called 1800. So the first in the series was 1602 AD. 1602 is actually the establishment of the Dutch East India Company. That was the very first one they brought out in 98 or whatever, video game, right? And in the most recent 1800 AD, you actually play the Industrial Revolution. And anyhow, I like, the strategy, civilization games, watching things grow. And then I was like, okay, I upgrade. And I was like, okay, I'm on the highest level. And I'm like, oh, now you introduce oil. And I was like, I'm not sure if I want to play anymore. Now you
Mark
got to install
Zuckerberg
oil
said he's going to
refineries.
do a Twitch Civilization. He wants to show his Twitch. He loves
Oh, please.
Civilization. Dude,
Yeah, I mean, can do something,
if
honestly,
Osama
can
bin
do
Laden
something
had a
useful.
Twitch, don't make me say it a third time like Beetlejuice, had a channel where I could watch him play Call of Duty or, I would do it, right? Cuz he was a Counter-Strike fan. If he could play Counter-Strike, I would watch it. So to see Zuckerberg play Civilization, oh my god, right? It's probably that's probably deep. That's probably
Well,
deep.
I only see one risk, because if it is true that the stock market prices are, if that is not 100% psyop, but some relevance to it, that stock market prices are contingent upon the statements of CEOs or the perceived, let's say, agility and viability of CEOs, then I'm not sure how long he'd want to stream. I mean, I never met him. Maybe he's like a robot. I mean, on some pictures it looked like that. So
I think
so
he's
it
going
could be pretty
insane.
good.
He's
But
like there's
with
what's the
these kind of
episode?
glasses, it looks like it. But or are they like holographic glasses? Or why are they so
They are
thick?
holographic draft. You don't know about those yet? Oh, I have to do like a whole segue on something that doesn't even matter to you. But like Data, that whole episode
Oh,
where
I got the holodeck.
he gets the emotion chip and the emotion chip
Oh yeah.
makes him all like hyper emotional. Like that's what's going on with Zuck out Nihil, right? This is all Zuck or all nothing. He's got these t-shirts now that he's worn a few times that say all Zuck or nothing in Latin.
Sorry, like, is the MK Ultra programming breaking down, or what's going on?
Dude, I mean, he's become a libertarian. He said he's got a lawyer for like how he's going to tell all about how the government made him hide the Biden laptop story. Zuck might be a complete liar, is what my friends say, but actually, to be honest, I believe him. I kind of think I can totally see how this would happen. An MK Ultra breakdown might be a way to put it, but I think it's something more. I think it's almost apotheosis or something. Like he's become so much more powerful than he ever was before that now he's learned how to be human in the weirdest way. Look at this. Look at this. This is what happens if you
What?
live. Yeah, look at him. He surfs all the time now. He hydrofoils all the time now. He like lives on an island. He drinks tropical punch from organic whatever. Like he's got
Mhm.
imagine this, right? He's the most healthy possible lifestyle.
I'm all for his redemption arc, I don't want to,
And
talk
what
bad about
happens? What
anyone.
did we talk about before? Where if you do yoga, even if it's because you want to make your ass look better, right? You just don't want to be fat anymore, right? But it doesn't matter
Well,
why you do
anything better
yoga.
than Ozempic, but yes, go on.
If you do, it does exactly. If you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter why you're doing the right thing. So even if he's done all these horrible intentions because he's doing all these things to his body, isn't it more probable he might end up on the right path? Is that crazy to say that he might be human? Is that crazy? I don't know. That's the craziest thing to say, probably.
Well, I'm rooting for him, so that's what I can say. We can do a rewatch
Oh,
then of
wow.
his Civilization stream.
Actually, I'm gonna have to think on that because you might have a point. Anyway,
Oh, will it? It was aborted?
no. I'm just saying like how social media might affect antinatalism. They might have a good point. Not sure I'm ready to like really squash that one right now.
Okay, I want to know more about that at some point. So here, all I can point out, and you'll have to ask David about this, but he said something like Rus and Sunna. That's all I got, yeah. So this is a
Really?
Jewish festival, but Rus and Sunna, yeah. And yeah, then you can see how far or not removed it is from the original religion, from which many of these traditions may have been derived. Also, check out how, I guess, Orthodox Jewish, how you would call it, prayers go, and how
Yeah.
variants of Muslim prayers go. So we have quite some interconnections here.
Yeah, I would have associate the blossom or the head, like it says head, right? Skull, because Rosh is like rose, but it's also like skull, like Rosh, rose. In Hebrew, it's the idea that the head blossoms from the womb. Actually, when it comes out of the womb, it expands. Maybe you could tie that to Ruth. I don't see that as being necessarily a problem, but I think that's also kind of the point of why, like, bring me the head of John the Baptist for the head of the year for Rosh Hashanah, right? It's a day of shouting and blasting. Like, there's multiple puns. There's multiple reasons why Rosh Hashanah is the way it is. But what was the reason you wanted to bring up this festival?
Not only because David gave me this, let's say, linguistic connection with Rus and Sunna, yeah.
Oh, the Rus, right? The
And
Rus.
the other
Okay,
thing,
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
course, unfortunately, this festival has, risen to fame in a sense that conspicuously, auspiciously, you very often at least have highly medialized, usually not very happy events going on during these days. We had the recent one. What happened this time? I forgot already, but
Well, I know I
you can
upset
watch out for
people.
these dates.
Even with my first history revised doc, which you've translated in German, because I talk about that in the video, the idea of the Rus being from the Hebrew Rosh Hashanah, like the Tartarian Crimean Jews, and that even Ukraine, even from like cranium, and that was where Ukrainians were like,
Mhm.
no, it's not cranium. It's like, well, it is pretty darn interesting that you've got the skull, the blossom, and the cranium, and there's also a lot of rose symbolism in Slava Ukrainia, right? Like the
Oh, and wasn't there also, it's just some meme that I saw, but in terms of some really relevant players, maybe it's gonna come up in my mind again. I mean, maybe even Brzezinski, it wasn't about him, but aren't there quite a few like officially Ukrainian-born, super important American families, even
Yeah.
extant today? So there definitely is a connection. Yeah, it's interesting because it makes me think again of Ed Hardy, if you know this
Let's see,
very
who can
bad
we
art
think of
style.
that's one of those families,
And
right?
and all they have is like roses, skulls, and I think that's it. Yeah. And maybe also Griffins. Can you look up Ed Hardy for a second? Because there's
Yeah,
something there, I'm
Ed
sure.
Hardy. Hold on.
Maybe we brought it up before, and I actually don't like the style so much. Not the
This guy?
guy design, yeah.
Oh,
Just the
like his
design.
psychedelic, like acid tattoo art, or
No. He has
or
just design. or like clothing, because there is some very regular stuff which is not so fancy. Yeah, this kind of stuff. Kill, Lord, love, kill slowly. Great.
Yeah, like
Okay.
pirate
You have a
tattoo.
heart, which is the alpha and omega. You have a skull, skull and bones. You have a blossom, maybe if you want. Hmm.
Yeah. What was I looking? Also had uh Hungarians also was the other connection too, because there's like the line of what the empire was and where everything like so they've moved empires and they forced alliances like back and forth like all right you two, all right now you two, and then we'll fight against them like every single time. It's pretty much the worst. Okay, so really quickly because you haven't heard of it, Zuck's made some new glasses and they're so cool you can't have them, right? Like they're just like too expensive to sell. So he showed everybody that he has these glasses that are super awesome and like even let people use them so that they could know they really do exist. And then he's just not going to sell them. But maybe they're going to do that in a couple years. It's wild.
Maybe. All I can tell you is that Ray Kurzweil in The Age of Singularity, the book he wrote in 2005, promised like widespread Google Glass type technology by, I guess, 2009.
Yeah, which we had.
So yeah,
We
how
had
much are
it.
they holding back? Yeah, sure. I'm sure
You know
someone
what
had it,
happened?
but
No,
this,
like I had it. Like we knew people that had
oh,
it.
you,
Like
you
Google,
mentioned this. Tell the story again. Yeah,
no, like Google. You know
they
what they
pulled
did?
it back or something.
They Google Glass, man. Google Glass was everybody. You know what the problem with Google Glass was? They'd punch you in the face. Like you go into a cafe or a bar or something like that in San Francisco, someone would have punched you in the face because they didn't want to have everything recorded, right? Because there's like a really strong human live thing, existentialism thing was in California up until they were all killed off with drugs and economically depopulated the state, right? Until now, it's just filled with hyper conservatives from the East now that are like working in tech. But yeah, California was very different.
Hyper conservatives from the East working in tech. That's not how it looked like the last time I was there, but
That's the point. They stay inside. So like what you have is people that are the
okay, but they're
failed.
not in San Francisco, or you mean they're hiding in their houses in San Francisco?
Yeah, even still, you have people hiding in their houses in San Francisco. You do have like a really like more and more. I think you have even if they call themselves leftists, because California is a monarchical state. They are essentially conservatives, right? And more you have uh, successful people that can pay rent living in the buildings while other people are forced out into the street. And these people are
And put
idiot.
on zombie drugs.
Yeah, which is kind of concurrent with what they wanted, right? Because they've taught the American youth that they should want to take drugs and should want to transform their bodies. They should want to be clowns. You should focus on your art. Should amuse people, right? That's kind of the thing. Instead of you should become a generationally sustainable character that is part of the community, that is necessary to the community in some function, that has a reason to be here, that will let be here and we won't kill off, and that you'll have kids that will keep you alive because we're probably not going to care about you, let's be honest, once you're not able to work for us. Like, so have kids that take care of you that will also work for us. You train them to do that, right? That's basically what they've brought from all these other war-torn countries to California.
So I'll bring up a very simple real life story, anonymized from a dear friend, just because you say about who cares or who doesn't care. So basically, let's say a cancer case, and the hospital for a year wasn't ready to say that the patient, from their point of view, was quote unquote untreatable, actually. So basically, leading someone on for a whole year. And also, no proper advice on diet or anything like that coming from the official thing, asking probably 100 times if they want to engage in chemotherapy, which, as I understand, I saw this quote again recently. I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, but that the thing called New German Medicine, which is employed by Dr. Gerd Hamer, is, for example, being used in Israel, and supposedly they have like a 95% cure rate for cancer, but it's only available in Israel. And I even saw a letter apparently written by him shortly before his death. He has anyone who's interested, check out a German New Medicine introduction. There's good English videos about this as well. It's about recognizing patterns within yourself. You can even do it with brain scans and have understandings through this. But anyways, what I want to get back to is, so this friend being led on, and then now being put on opiates, I guess. These are free. And then also very cheaply, you basically every day get someone, I want to say raid your home, no, but like going there like, oh, you need something, can I bring you something? But even here you have to imagine how effed up the system is, because it is not like, oh, maybe then you have someone, whatever they're doing, washing your dishes or whatever. And it's not like you get the same individual every day, but literally what they do and what they strive for is to make sure there is no fraternalization between client and caretaker, let's say. So they switch them out deliberately and stuff like that. So much about, the state caring for you, and it's very, very strange sense. Okay, anyhow, that's my rant about how much the hospitals really care about you. Here, what I wanted to bring up, because you talked about steel. So this is just briefly. Anyone can check out the link. This is from the official, mining association. I might have brought this up once before. Do you notice anything, Andreas, on this chart?
I mean, the dollar was really stable for a while, and then it wasn't.
Okay, how stable was it?
She was so stable. She was so stable. She could
Or what
walk
would
out
you
of that
say
bar and drive home.
up until the auspicious year of 1919? What was the approximate price of gold officially for every single year?
1893 to 1890, like almost 19 bucks until then. I don't know.
Yes, I think we can say safely 19. And anyone who's seen any David videos can basically know that this is most certainly some sort of coding, which means for some reason the real market there was obfuscated, or it was completely controlled and virtualized, and they just backdated and put their, whatever they wanted. Yeah, I mean, even today you have gold price fixing and everything, but
stable for this time? No, this wouldn't make sense, would it? No,
it
this wouldn't make sense
perfectly
at all,
stable
would it?
for
This is
50
the Civil
years
War
on
and
$19. Yeah, Civil War.
during the Civil War, during the Napoleonic, no, during like Napoleon's brother, and no, it doesn't make sense at all. During industrialism, what? Why?
This
How?
official data.
This doesn't make sense for the UK Mint. I'll have to look into that. It doesn't really make sense to me. It seems like just the sheer change in the value of the dollar alone from Confederate to Yankee during that crisis, and how much the dollar shifted in value for the Confederacy, it just doesn't make sense to me.
And also, when was the pricing officially let loose? In 1919. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's a bit too many coincidences for me.
Right, which 1919 was far less of a trouble than the 1870 economic crisis, right?
Oh, I'm not even putting up any historical knowledge. I'm just putting up it's a 19. It's two 19s.
It changed literally by 1 cent in 1871. That's crazy.
And just since we're on it, can you briefly put up, because it's also often referenced in also conspiracy or law circles, the Seste Quevi Act of Seste Quevi, yes. Yes, but there is a UK law for it. Maybe go back and add UK law. Wait, I'm looking it up.
Person whose life is considered when determining the rights and distribution of assets in a held trust. It's probably still the law because it's a common law, and it probably just goes back to the Roman law, right?
I'm sending you the link right here. I'm sure I brought this up once before, and it's quite a common thing in like quote-unquote sovereign citizens thing and all of that. Oh wow, nice! It's even almost better than I thought. And again, even for
the Act
me,
of 1666. Okay.
Anybody who sometimes feels like they take some time to research. I mean, I've been researching almost all my conscious life and listening to all kinds of perspectives. Sometimes it really takes some time to recognize the most obvious things, even if you know about them for years. So here, again, we're playing the same game. What do you notice here? Do you know what this law is about?
I guess when someone doesn't have a will, who the property goes to?
So in the whole, like, let's say sovereign law movement or whatever, they often reference this as the idea that if I'm recounting this correctly now, that more or less by the age of 7, you're considered to be like cargo lost at sea or something. All your assets are confiscated. And it's kind of this, kind of joke system. We don't know exactly, how many insurances are on each entity's person's name and so on. There's people that can talk about this in a more succinct and expanded sense than I can. However, this is often referenced as one of the base things and seems pretty nefarious if you look at it, and if you would consider it still, at least here, it's still in action. But then again, what year was this created?
1666, of course.
I mean, the 666, of course, is auspicious enough, but I was always wondering, why is there a 1 in front? Which, of course, actually, we know now may be added on anyhow in the timeline. But why is it 1666? I'm going to give you the answer, because if you put it together, it's a 19. It's the Act 19, and it's even Chapter 11. At least that's the first thing there. Yeah. 18 and 19. All right. So,
Oh, right. Yeah. 18 and
So
18 1.
we had the 19s all over again. Just wanted to point that out.
Wow, it is 19. That's pretty interesting.
And to anyone, again, who doesn't know about this, let's put up the Surah. Which one is it? Surah 74, I believe.
So basically the idea that if your cargo is transferred across the ocean and it's lost at sea, someone finds that cargo, it belongs to them. Or if it's a debt, they can own the debt, they can purchase the debt. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I mean, if the, let's say, sovereign law conspiracies or whatever are actually true, then it would basically just mean that, by the age of 7, you're not going to claim your estate or anything. We are within this strange admiralty law construct. And the idea here would just be, because you didn't claim it back by the time you're 7, you arrived at port, whatever, you get your passport, you get your dock tour and all of these magic happenings through the birth canal, and then you don't claim your estates, and then basically, I don't know, you are in the state that or they treat you as a slave, as we all are, with social security numbers and all of that, right?
You lose your birthright. Brutal.
So anyone who doesn't know about it, Surah 74:30, if you can kindly quickly pull that up, just so we can bring the reference. Surah 74:30 from the Quran.
74:30. Okay. Is overseen by 19 keepers.
So this is, of course, very expansive. Anyone who's now like having the question marks, why is it going on about the 19? What's going on? I would have no clue about this if it weren't for Andreas's introduction to David Ewing Jr. He's spoken about this extensively, and simply put, the 19 seems to be a coding that, for some reason, is being used like crazy by the controller factions, and they simply cannot help themselves but to put it literally anywhere and everywhere. And you also have it on Jesuit ring, 9/11, 11/9. It's all over the place, and they can't help themselves. And here they basically say this is a great warning to mankind, and watch out for the 19, which also could stand for AI and so many other things. In the tarot, it's auspiciously the Sun card. Maybe we're here with whatever, heliocentrism, I'm not sure. Yeah. So again, many connections, very extensive topic. Check out David Ewing Jr. There's like, I guess, at least 30 full presentations publicly available by now, where you can get a good look at everything.
Right. XIX 19. Yeah, also 18. Anytime you see a number, just always think about 0 too. Like that number either is that number plus 0 or that number minus that number because of 0. It's always like an additional. So like 22 is 23. 18 is 19. It's good to remember because 0 is a number. It exists. There's an extra point. What about the vacuum tubes? I love vacuum tubes.
Yeah, and that's the main reason I brought them up. I recently spoke about it too.
One of the first nightmare like scenarios I remember, I think it was like 16, and I was thinking to myself, like, what if I was on a desert island, like society collapses and I didn't know how to make a cathode ray tube. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like how important it would be. So that's one of the reasons I was like, I have to learn everything about cathode ray tubes because you have to be able to make one. And it's so crazy, but I feel like I could do it, but it would be really hard to get all the parts together still to do it properly. But you could definitely make them, and thank God for that, or else society would just be like lost. As far as I think that's like the benchmark.
Yeah, I mean, with this invention and reinvention of technology, I I'm not claiming to really have a clue. I mainly brought this up because I heard about it, funnily enough, on a segue on a Douglas Dietrich show, which sometimes
Really?
I'm listening into 20 minutes of the 12-hour streams. Um, and anyhow, they were mentioning this in terms of audio technology, and then I asked a friend about it, and we actually had him on, George, and he just said, yeah, it's really great and it's interesting, but it's just prohibitively expensive to currently do anything with it, and I think it uses a lot of energy also. So, but yeah, just in terms of audio tech, it's an interesting
What's
tidbit.
the yeah cathode? I mean, like I guess it's expensive. I mean, it depends. You don't really need to do it anymore, but yeah, using tube amplifiers, you have a chamber without the distortion from air, and you can even use instead of just a vacuum, you can use a gas. Sometimes that is an intentional effect, but a lot of times it's a vacuum. It's mostly a vacuum tube, so you have a perfect pure chamber. I mean, it's a great thing for getting a pure resonance, right? So yeah, not just for sound though. I mean, that's why it's used for video. That's what the whole these are so important. And basically, you just have to blow some glass, right? It's just like the same thing as a glass blower would do. And you have to do it in such a way that you kind of hermetically seal the glass so that there's no air saved in the glass when this happens. It's so hot it burns it off into the glass itself. So, I mean, it can be done. It's a ship in a bottle, right? It's pretty cool. Wait, were we gonna? Did you want more on the? Was that the main point of the tubes?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to point it out. It's interesting tech and it can be used for audio. I can't say much more, but
Yeah.
of course you have the whole 33.2, 40 hertz conspiracy. God knows who's related with this, which frequency is best.
Oh, look, this kind of reminds me of the Colossus of Rhodes. Well, are we charring tootin'? Look at that. What's this from? I follow, we fly, we die. Was the was this gray a retaliation for shutting down the Knights Templar? What do you think? Was this because King Philip? What are they going to talk about here? Tell me about this.
Now they're talking about mainly the idea of like poisoning the wells, from what I understand. I can't
Oh
properly piece it
my
together,
gosh!
to be
Really?
honest,
Wow.
but it's an interesting concept. I mean, both the idea of poisoning well, also this idea of miasma. Because even now, I just recently saw like a TikTok video, God knows what, and they said like, "Oh, very strange. Why like so much aluminium in the sky?" And
Hmm.
what's the point? And it's not associated with natural things, but then deliberately you have chemical plants, espousing certain things. And definitely, I mean, if you can flood a whole city with certain concentrations of harmful materials or whatever to, change their biochemistry, potentially make it more difficult for them to remain healthy.
I mean, that'd be wild. I guess so. I wonder about. I'll have to look into that. I have no idea if they. I mean, it makes enough sense, but I feel like the plague's real because there are examples of the bubonic plague in Ethiopia today. That they. I mean, in Madagascar particularly, it's been a problem because they cut down so
Hmm.
many trees. So I think the plague does exist, but after King Philip was killed, I think it makes sense that the Knights Templar would have tried to. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't even need to have been that way though, because the Knights Templar were all over. Even though they were disbanded by King Philip, they still had control over so many of the territories of Europe and even Eurasia. So why would they have to do that? Unless, I guess, because they have to take back their gold. And those towns, they have these churches. Okay, I'll watch this and think about that. That seems like a possibility. That's a crazy idea, man. Talking about Knights Templar poisoning wells. All right. Interview with inventor of neural nets, Warren McCulloch, neurologist who helped start it way back. Is this the guy who did the Sword of Damocles, or what's his deal?
Yeah, so actually, I didn't listen to him yet. I'll listen back and listen very closely to the main points he's making. I just found it was hilarious that he's sitting there topless, and
Yeah.
and also just to point out that again, the whole idea of artificial intelligence and neural networks and all of that is not necessarily a new idea. But yeah, I still have to watch it to see what he's gonna say. But I just thought it's definitely gonna be a curious bit.
Yeah, it's cool that he's like not. He's just wearing what, swim shorts. He's wearing some shorts, and he's just chilling out, smoking a cigarette. That's the kind of guy you got to be worried about, man. That's the kind of guy who actually runs the world, makes all the cool stuff. And they let him be free. He's like, all right, I'll make all that stuff, but you got to let me be so free, you know. All right, we'll check it out. What about Peugeot's giant dog Saint
Yeah, so
Christopher?
these are the second section links. So I haven't also watched this yet either. I just also found it very curious that you have these, hybrid depictions. I
Right.
can't say enough about it. I mean, only that this very still strange thing with, Sirius, which they call the dog star. You have the Dogon that claims Sirius. You have also some other cultures that kind of claim this connection.
And Jesus
Yeah,
had a
but I
donkey
can't piece it
head.
together.
Yeah,
Or what?
Jesus had a donkey head. You know about that one?
Oh no.
Oh man, it's the where is that at?
I
The
thought he
Alex.
was riding on a donkey.
No, yeah, that's the thing. You read it wrong. No, they read it wrong. Like that's the point. Nobody like they somebody mistook that story. That he was riding into town as a donkey instead of on a donkey. This is a crucified donkey-headed dude. You see that? Do you see the donkey
Oh.
head right there? You see the donkey
Oh
head?
my God, this reminds me of Hotline Miami. Have you ever, can you can pull it up on YouTube if you want for a second. It's a really
Okay.
gruesome 2D game. You know about it?
I feel like I do, but I don't remember. Hotline Miami. Sorry if I'm just too like. Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
what I
Let me
have
check
to
it out.
tell you is the soundtrack is super dope. Like I'm still listening back to some things, and you kind of have like these masks, and one of them is like a horse mask. But actually, what's pretty amazing, and this is a good video, probably ending explained, because from what I remember at the very end of the um, oh, and actually, spoiler, I'm only using 10 seconds for fair use, but you can go back to it.
Okay.
My face, like watch the video game. um, the intro music I actually chose for the David's presentations, where at the very beginning, the 20 seconds, and at the end is actually one of the tracks taken from this game, just because many of the tracks are so amazing again, and also as a kind of a backstory idea at the very end, actually, managing to understand why he's getting all these calls or where they're getting these calls from, because during the whole game, you're basically a hitman. You're taking calls in Miami, 1989 or whatever, and you're basically going on killing sprees. And at the very end, he realizes that he basically got set up by two people like as a prank. And if I got it correctly, their motivation is somehow that I believe they were like anti-nationalists or something like that. And I just found that very, very curious idea. And also it's a kind of interesting fourth wall breaking thing, because like, oh, I'm just playing a game, you're slaughtering everyone. And at the very end, they're like asking you, like, do you even know what you've been doing? Do you even have any clue what's going on? You're just executing these things, but do you know the bigger story? And of course, most people, I guess also in the
A lot of
military,
people just follow
unfortunately,
orders, man.
don't know the bigger story. So
Yeah, that's kind of the
yes.
plan. Need to know basis. Oh yeah, Mikhailovich Gorsky. What about him? Do you want to talk about his anthropology, or what was the
Oh
deal?
yeah,
His
he
family
was.
tree.
Yeah, right. No, yeah. The only reason I brought him up is it is said he is best known for his pioneering work in color photography and his effort to document early 20th century Russia. So either this is relevant, old world information, or this is just the oldest mock-up they have of introducing whatever new ideas they want to portray Russia as. I can't tell. I'm not claiming I have a clue about it, but it's definitely someone interesting to check out, and maybe interesting pictures to look at to see like what is he depicting. Was that the real general situation there? Are these pictures particularly selected to portray a certain narrative? I don't know enough and haven't looked deeply enough to give an answer to that, but I just thought I want to point him out.
Yeah, I mean, they use the older technique of having 3 captures simultaneously because they didn't have eventually you have Technicolor where you have 9 layers of chemicals perforation so that in between the CMYK, right, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and chromatic layers, which are just different layers of silver that are exposed to each different, fraction of light spectrum. And then they would have RGB in between the CMYK, so red, green, and blue, right, red, green, and blue. And so then those colors would burn at different levels depending on which spectrum of light hit which chemical that was in which perforation. So they would only burn off the light for one layer at a time. But at this point, they didn't have that. So they had to use 3 different pieces. I think there's a picture of it earlier. Yeah, sometimes it's like 4 different pieces to CMYK version. But it's three different pictures were the RGB. And then they put that together. And this was used before Technicolor even for movies. So I know the Reich did it, but also the American Three Stooges did it, which was really funny. If you watch the Three Stooges at the beginning, they have very green looking skin, like red and green at the same time. And the reason is because the green they put above the blue, because the blue made it look really cold. So they would sandwich the blue in between the red and the green, right? And yeah, that it wasn't as good as the Russian stuff. So if you look at it, actually, the Germans and the Russians had, like, the Germans had the best, and the Russians had really, really, by 1940, had the absolute best color film there ever was. But they already did by 1915 have techniques for doing this. It was by 1919 that they had single film perforation. 1919, of course, 19. Great.
Oh yeah.
Jeeves with the donkey head. Yeah, I just feel like that's a great one though, right? I love that this is the picture they drew. They're like, hey, if you ever see a Christian, this is what they believe, man. This is what they believe. All right. Okay, Shalom Vienna.
Yeah, and just this is like regular, I guess, mainstream documentary video about Austria and the, I guess, Jewish population mainline history. There's also one of those I'll still have to watch. May contain, some interesting ideas or some interesting pictures. What I'd like to know, either you want a monologue for 2 minutes, or because I want to step out for just 2 minutes, or I have uploaded a recent music video a dear friend of mine made. We can either play that or you can monologue for just 2 minutes, then I'll be right back.
Let's play your friend's music video. As long as we don't get in trouble for it. Are we allowed to do it?
No, I'm pretty sure we won't.
All
it's
right.
not with Universal.
Cool. And there's
Cool,
no
then
like,
we'll be back.
There's no like pictures of like George Bush with like riding goats.
No, it's unfortunately it's mainly nature pictures.
Oh,
So if you want to watch it whole, it's like 5 minutes 30, and then we can come back for the last part for today.
Oh, yeah, let's
All right.
do that. See you in a second. You should do it like all like radio style. You should be like, okay, that was do it, do it.
That was Tim Strachowitz, Timid Music on YouTube, and the group Gateways, which he's a part of, which I guess this was not a part of, but he's also part of. Really nice music. I love his voice. I love his instrumentals. Definitely worth checking out.
Behind us are toasters flying with bread with butter through space, which doesn't exist.
Here we are. Okay, we can continue. I don't think we're gonna be able to get through everything today.
Oh, we can do it.
But
We can see. What we got?
oh yeah. So here earlier I saw Natch in the channel. Thank you, Natch, for assisting in this endeavor. I basically even don't want to talk a lot about it. I just want to point out anybody who's currently interested in the Earth shape debate and what's, let's say, going on the ground and with this whole final experiment and potential logical fallacies and shifting goalposts and positions, false dichotomies, strange behaviors, strange name callings. Check it out and please make up your own mind. On the one hand, I mean, people interested in this maybe know about this already. Anyone who thinks this is irrelevant, I want to point out there may be immense financial and also control affection interests behind this in the end. And yeah, here I thought this could be interesting to you. I had brought this up earlier some time ago. Did you know that there is this question for Alex Stein to go? Tim Pool, first he was offering to pay like willy-nilly, was like, oh, 100K, whatever. And now I'm not sure if they're so clear on it anymore, or they said they want to send a proxy or whatever. But again, the main issue simply being that here they call something an experiment, which ultimately, however you slice it, remains a sky observation. And if anything, can only falsify a very particular model. However, they are claiming that depending on the sky observation, the Earth will curve or not, which of course is ridiculous. But yeah, and you have this very charismatic guy here, leading everyone on emotionally and so on, and speaking to you like you're in primary school. But yeah, that's already enough to say about this. Thank you for moving on. This I wanted to bring up because you brought it up, and now
I was
it's the
about to
reference.
say,
Maybe
I
just
just
recount
closed
it.
this tab. Thanks a lot. Put it right back up. All right.
Oh, this one? No, I just because you had sent me the link after you mentioned it last time. This is about the vampires in the Philippines or whatever,
Hold on.
Vietnam. Yeah.
Hold on a second. Just no words. Just 1 second. All right, maybe some context. So you're walking through the woods trying to get home in the middle of the night after your sister was murdered, and you see your brother there with holes in his neck, with blood drained from it, and you hear sounds coming out of walkie-talkies and tape players, but you don't know that they're there. They're just duct taped to the backs of the trees. And these are the sounds that they paid your neighbors to record in the POW camps at the American Navy and Army base. All right, kind of based, right? Like it's messed up. It's messed up. But that reverb. I feel bad because the kids
Full
freaked out.
spectrum dominance.
But I unironically listen to this kind of music, so. All right. Okay, I'm sorry. So the point is that that's Operation Wandering Soul, and basically it's it's not very different than anything else, really. It's kind of like Noriega, where we played American pop music at them, only they're playing like no wave, noisecore, alt stuff that you guys back home, you can be honest, you would go to a noise show with me. You would love to hear that kind of music. The problem is if you're alone in the woods and they've done this Blair Witch Project thing, and again, they've tortured people okay, and probably murdered some people too, and burned villages. So It's terrifying. The thing that you have to understand is how many people didn't die because of that, because they thought, okay, well, what's the scariest thing we can do, because these people otherwise would just fight to the death against dragons, right? They'll throw sticks at helicopters. They're prideful people. They're going to just continue to not be dominated. Here, at least, we find out what's the most terrifying thing we can do. And hopefully that is enough to stop people from fighting. Because, again, these are really honorable people. They're willing to die for their cause, for their families, right? Of course, they're willing to die for their families. So how do you turn that off? And a psychological operation might have saved more lives than, the amount of people they would have killed just going in there being like, you got to do what we say, right?
Well, the colonials being less domineering might have saved the most lives, but let's leave that aside, right?
The problem is you can't be neutral.
Pragmatic utilitarianism.
You can't be neutral when you're thrown in a river, right? Like the river's going a direction, So the world around you also has weather patterns. It's also the East is a factor.
See, I can see the line of thought. I'm not even disagreeing.
Russia was there, bro. You didn't understand, bro. All right. Operation Wandering Soul. That's a brutal one. Okay, I need to change that tab though, because that was like a silent tab. Let's go to this window.
Yeah, this one, I think you're gonna like. I haven't made my mind up yet. Oh, but you're skipping
Did I
one.
go too far?
You skipped the big one because there was one which was in full because it's on a particular time, and then when I put it in the link list, it makes up an embedded video instead of just giving a link.
Oh, hold on. Let me find that one then. Let's see here. Is it this guy?
Yes.
This one?
And then no, a bit down. Yes,
Damn.
MH370. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Oh,
Alright.
it didn't give the particular point. That's strange. No, it does. Okay, but I have it. Doesn't matter. 3441. Yeah. Okay. Have you seen this?
No. 34.
I kind of feel since you were in the front lines, if I remember correctly. I mean, not really, but kind of.
I was just in California, man. But yeah.
And went on digital front line, if I remember correctly. So tell me what this is. So this guy is showing this footage, and apparently the Chinese also put out like only one frame, but not of this thing.
Yeah.
And this was like hacked or whatever. And so either basically has to be verified. This is some sort of, AI, whatever, or this is basically, scalar wave, hidden technology, portal tech. And what's strange to me is that they bring this out on Redacted, which is quite a big channel by a former Fox and Friends host, even though they have a bit too much mainstream commercials, if you ask me. But they bring
all
this
I can
out.
say is we freaking tried. All right, we tried to warn you people. Okay, we tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. You wouldn't.
Here we are.
You wouldn't listen to CNN when you had the chance. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, back then it was a different company,
Bro,
But
there
yeah.
was a moment there where I worked for them, and it was different. And I tell you, we tried. We tried to tell you.
So I mean, this is because this basically looks like from a effing action movie or something where they would showcase this. If I assume that this is not a forged up image, I mean,
we saw stuff like this. That was the whole thing. Everyone was saying that it was guided by drones to Diego Garcia, right? Isn't that the full thing there?
No, but isn't the thing that then it vanishes? So
it's probably like stolen by the whoever para agency organization that did the thing, right? And then like Diego Garcia is like some ancient island base. I remember recently someone had a really great dig. If anyone has that, the idea that Diego Garcia was actually some sort of an ancient, Star Warsian like temple place or something like that. I remember just seeing this recently because there's some sort of like mythological thing about it. I don't know. I'm scared to go through X because X is always like dangerous to look at. Just like live, you should be very careful about like live jumping through a scroll of things. I don't know. Can't find it now. But yeah, there's basically Diego Garcia is a place where the government, I think the American government rents it from the British government. So it's a perfect place for the plane to disappear. Is this the next one though? Is the Hurricane Milton heading to Florida?
Oh yeah, here, I mean, anyone interested, I'm sure you saw enough videos about this yet, and there is a maybe more interesting one coming up two down. There's just more like from Redacted, and then there's a video on Juan podcast with
Oh,
Dr. Narcolongo, where they
nice.
brought up also some kind of old world stuff, which is very interesting. So main point here is just kind of my question, like, is it apparently kind of mainstream now to admit to like hardcore weather modification? Because that's kind
I
of what
think
it looks
so.
like to me.
I
And
think we're
how
trying really hard to
when
make.
did that change? Like 2 weeks ago, or what
No,
happened? At least in
like
America.
I think that like Andrew Yang introduced geoengineering in 2020 to the American debates as a term that was more commonly acceptable. And in the last 4 years, you have again a new generation. And so basically it's based on the new kids being working and living their lives. And there's just a retiring of the older people. So a lot of people are dead or just retired or they're less effectual. You don't interact with them as much. So they're accepting that geoengineering is a real thing. Plus, like the patents are out, right? Like you can just, I think earlier on the show, did I not show patents from geoengineering just like earlier today? I probably should do it again. Let's see. Weather modification, patents, list history. I just exhaustive patents related to weather. There was a whole bunch of them, right? You can check out, but there was like a great. I saw like a list of it. There was like called like the weather. Operation Sea Spray is good. Well, Google Patents. We'll go to the Google Patents one. There's enough
I
there, but
also
there's
heard
just
this, I
tons.
think, on this show with Dr. Longo, and also that even Lyndon B. Johnson spoke about it. But what's so funny to me, maybe America is a bit farther ahead here. Also, Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about it apparently, who's at the very least, officially Congresswoman. Because if in Austria you would bring this up, even with the recent election and the very strange flooding in Lower Austria, there is zero even consideration that this could be. So I find it
Well, that's just
interesting that,
crazy. That's what I've been realizing.
so
It's
it's
gonna
like we're a
be
bit backwards in Austria, or what's going to happen,
yeah.
because America is an inspiration often, but here nobody dared to reference it yet and be like, oh, maybe there's something strange going on. They're
I
only
think that
debating
you
about the
this
insurance
week is
claims.
no, now that the weather has happened and with the storm in Florida, I think your Germans and Austrians are starting to say, well, it's not confirmed, but of course there's talk of weather modification, right? Because how could you freaking not? But for the last 10 years it's been crazy to even suggest even anything like that because we have an establishment that we're supposed to trust, as opposed to being what's a more German thought process. What are the capabilities of the technology, and what can they be used for, and what are the ramifications of that? That is normally what is taught. The consequentialism of can people interact with weather? Well, my God, we can put lasers on satellites. I think we can shoot them at clouds, right? We can do so many different things than that, but we could evaporate clouds literally just with heat. So if that's possible, then what else can we do in terms of cloud seeding? Why would we do that? Who benefits from that? What countries would need water for their wine production in Europe? I
So
don't know.
I will bring it up
It's
again.
like
Aside
crazy.
from small resets and claiming prime real estate in Austria, for Lower Austria now, initially they had like a 10% cap. So basically, if you have a 1 million house, you can be lucky if you get 10%. And now they want to be so nice to maybe increase it to 50%. But still, the main, I guess, legal term here that is often a special clause also in many insurance contracts, from the little that I understand, is, force of God, or force majeure, as they say, major force, higher force, for, hand of God. But then only if you don't understand where humans have their hands in, including potentially influencing the weather, then you can easily tell people, oh, it's God, it's a natural process,
Right.
it's global warming, pay your carbon tax. But still, you're only gonna get 20% of whatever we took from you when we flooded your area.
Surfs up in the Kali Yuga. So this is the video I want every German to see. Maybe we need AI and Raf and I to like hang out and translate this one, because this is probably not going to get translated by the Disney Channel, unfortunately. This is a declassified military video made by the United States government. Well, made by Disney, but paid for by the United States government for Disney to make, using Technicolor, produced with Ward Kimball, distributed by Buena Vista.
These videos are so great. These educational, military complex Disney videos.
This one's crazy. I mean, literally, it's mainly for the military to see how they're going to use weather modification. And it was a special appreciation for the Department of Defense, Army, Navy, Air Force, Air Signal Research and Development Laboratory. Please watch this video, and so you can understand exactly the plans on, hey, if we have a hurricane, let's imagine that we have a hurricane that hits, where's the picture of it too? It's like weather systems, boom. Is it like way over here? There we go. Okay. Let's say we have a storm that launches off the coast of, I don't know, Florida. Right? What can we do? What can we do to control that storm?
Oh no, it's literally the example. Come on.
It's literally the example.
I'm sure if you like frame by frame, they probably have exactly the same frame going on all the weather channels to pass.
It's literally the example. I mean, like, look at this too. Like, look at the storms right before it, and like how they're moving the storm across Europe, right? I mean, it's crazy. There's a storm that's right above Africa that they're moving south of the Mediterranean. So yeah, there's a lot of weird syncs in this video, but it's not, oh, it's prophecy. No, I'm not saying that at all. This is just the way things work, because it's freaking mechanical. It's a machine that they have running. They have the capacity to move storms. Yeah, no, obviously. And so, like, during the election season, you have a storm in Florida. It seems pretty reasonable to say they could stop that, right? Like, where's all the trillions? Wasn't it like trillions of dollars, hundreds of billions? There's a $300 billion or something that disappeared from FEMA recently. Adam Krigler was showing me that. Tons of money is going so they can make sure that people are moved from swing states, right? That's a major thing. Florida's basically...
I heard that. I mean, I'm pretty sure, because here I'm also like, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure this is not, if it were only about the political vote, supposedly, this is not the most cost-effective way to do it. You can...
No.
How should I say? I'm not going to use the words, but you can certainly do 100 other things that would be more cost effective. So I'm sure they're cashing in on like 100 different fronts at the same time. And I believe like Hurricane Katrina may be a good example for that. And always the same story, even with the whole, Tartaria hypothesis or whatever. Even just today, you're just disowning farmers, you're disowning any self-sustainability, and then make sure you get hooked up into the matrix. You get a check, now you can rent a small coffin room.
Yeah. Well, the other one that's important is Hurricane Humberto, which is the one I was trying to remember the name.
Yeah, and there, just briefly, because someone brings it up, also massive hurricane election year. And the same thing was in Austria, actually, when the last heavy floods were 20 years ago, also just before this election, which we may talk about last time. It's an ongoing process. The election happened in Austria. The Freedom Evil Right-Wing Party won. And now the short thing is everyone else now is scheming. Even though they were the only ones who really won, everyone else now is scheming. How can we prevent them from actually having anything to do with the government? Which, of course, is, even just watching it, so obviously hypocritical. Again, it's almost like the political class itself is begging to, I don't know, even further lower their reputation, however that could be possible. But anyways, because also in Austria was election year. This was in 2000, I believe, or did you say 2004? No. It may have been 2004 again, because my friend said it was 20 years ago. So maybe it was again synchronized, Austria and America, both with elections and strange weather events.
The 2005 European floods were insane, right? Austria, Germany. Wasn't that a big one?
Okay, then it was 5. All right.
Yeah. 2005 was when 2005 was a gnarly year. Oh my gosh. There was tsunamis, there was storms, there's amazing things. But yeah.
So one of the things that is brought up in the video, I can recommend everyone to watch it, the Dr. Narcolongo video with
Katrina, exactly.
Juan on Juan, because they also talk about golf courses and the recurrent idea. I know Victor Buge also spoke about this. What is really below the golf courses? What mounds are there? Could it be that there's bones there and graveyards and whatever? Why do people, this is what Dr. Longo brings up, in golf courses traditionally wear spiked shoes? Is there
Earthquake in
some kind
Turkey was
of,
sus. Yeah,
oh
I
yeah,
think
I
the
mean,
earthquake in Turkey was sus. I agree. I agree with that.
so anyhow, the concept of the golf courses and having these spiked shoes is, could it be that there's like some magnetic connection, etheric connection? Could this even be, this is only my thought process, if let's say the ground, maybe because of bones or whatever is below these golf courses, Trump owns plenty of them, hint, is maybe electrically charged or something. I could imagine that through spikes, you know, you just can just go barefoot on the normal grass,
Let's
but
see.
I could imagine there could be some kind of, you know, electricity or energy transmission going on there, which makes you wonder why a certain class of people always run around on golf courses. They have both, you know, energy and ritualistic purposes. Um, and then you can briefly bring up the next link while I'm opening the
Just for
window for my cat.
just for 2 seconds, and also want to show like a couple, because we talked, I just wanted to briefly insinuate the obvious that you can shoot lasers at clouds, but you know, beyond that, cloud seeding, someone brought up cloud seeding in the chat, and there are just tons of examples of cloud seeding patents. There were patents that go back to the 19th century, but there are modern cloud seeding patents that are pretty impressive as well, including recent cloud patents that Bill Gates is involved with, right? The 2022 chemical, what's it called, chemical sulfation claims, which is exactly what they use for making sunsets. What's it called? What's the company called? Make Sunsets, right? Bill Gates' company that was prohibited in Mexico, that was injecting stratospheric aerosol injections in order to make clouds. So cloud seeding is a major thing that's happening all the time. Tell your mom. Tell your mom to tell your mom's friends. You need to know about cloud seeding. And yeah, just tell them to go to makesunsets.com and you can watch, I mean, as seen on TV. Just it's real. Don't worry about it. It's real. It exists. Worry about it if you want. Okay, the other thing I wanted to say just really quickly was that Hurricane Humberto, September 11th, boom, pushed. It just pivots all of a sudden as it's coming, and boom, it clears the path so that September 11th, 2001, it's a clear sky day, no problems in New York, even though there was a Bermuda hurricane headed right towards New York that was supposed to be a major epic storm, right?
I mean, God knows who or what exactly caused this, but you know, either some other party or some higher force actually naturally would have prevented the whole BS operation from occurring. I mean, how curious is that?
Yeah, right? Isn't that wild? I think that is. I think that is. Okay. So now we'll go back to the map. Let's look at see the 19th hole. Is that the chess, is that the golf thing that we were going to look at already?
Yes, I'm very sorry, but when I then heard about this golf and it's so important for the controllers, we have all these conspiracies.
Yeah,
Then I
it
was like,
is.
well, could there be anything related to the auspicious 19 and golfing?
Of course.
Well, a golf course only has 18 holes, but then you have the very common trope apparently that golf is not just a sport, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Beyond the fairways and greens, there exists a cherished tradition known as the 19th hole. Yeah, I'm not a golfer, but
Well, it's just the idea.
conspicuous.
It's the idea that after you're done with the golf club, where do you go next? So, do you go hang out at the bar? You know what I mean? Like, and not necessarily because you might not drink, but you might get a hamburger, you might get a sandwich
I
together. Do you, the club? The club part is the 19th
yeah,
hole.
the club, exactly. Yes,
Okay,
the
all right.
club.
These
The club.
this
You take
town
your
doesn't
club
get
to the club.
subtext. They don't get context. They don't get. Just make
Yeah.
sure that everyone gets it. Okay. All right. North Carolina town that produces quartz needed for tech products is devastated by Helena. Aw.
So this was just one of the tidbits brought up again in the show with Dr. Longo. Interesting to consider. I don't know enough about it, but apparently this is like a rare earth mineral type situation. And this may be one of the side effects to have a squeeze on certain markets or chips or AI compliant, I want to say, or, you know, simply resources that are relevant for all these things. I don't know, but it's an
What are we gonna do?
interesting part, like super high quality quartz, basically.
Man, that's too bad. Well, we'll see how that affects technology, but I guess we could always imagine there's more technology in China and the rest of the world. It's always okay if we work together, but we never want to. And so the rest of the time is going to be this big old war. Okay, Project P. Diddy as corporate state intelligence operations.
Yeah, so here there's just a few links regarding this current situation. One thing I want to point out, because I had brought her up like 6 months ago, the conversations with Jaguar Wright. Anyone who wants to make this somewhat, palatable or entertaining, listen to Jaguar Wright podcasts, because she's been saying many things which now, at least from the official timeline history document witnesses coming out, seem to be confirmed. So that's the one thing. And here, I just wanted to point out Professor Hamamoto. He's done some other interesting videos and has quite interesting perspectives. And here, not to dwell on these topics, which are not, really fun to talk about, but to understand the pattern and the system and the structure behind it, I think it's good to take a look. And he's got a, I think, based perspective, as, the youth would say today.
Oh man, what have we
Yes.
done? Yeah. Okay, what about
Yeah.
this guy?
It's just more on this field. Of course, Sean Atwood is known for his doing true crime stuff, and here just very interesting. The lady on the right is very charming, and she is like a psychic reader, and apparently also because strangely, apparently she was a victim herself many years ago of certain groups, and it's just kind of a perspective I guess you don't usually get on these things. So anyone who is into whatever psychic things and wants to hear from a psychic what they say about this, and then later you can verify whether it's correct or not, can take a look here. And also because they kind of segue into the whole spiritual aspect, and as one common meme now goes, and I fear quite accurate, one of those rappers or whatever, they say, well, what is it about? It's about quote unquote shattering your base chakra. And this is meant both in a quite base sense and also in an etheric sense. And also here they kind of talk about these interconnections between ritualistic aspects and energy aspects.
Shattering your kundalini.
So
Yeah.
definitely there's something there in association with the whole control structure, trauma bonding, all of that. And it's nothing fun to talk about, but because it is so prevalent in that scene, because currently, honestly, it looks like any relevant big star music in the last 30 years, or 80% of it and of the actors, it looks like they're gonna go down in flames in the next months. I mean, at least the way it's going right now. So yeah, anybody who wants to a heads up on that, they can check those videos out. The next two videos are also about that topic. We don't need to really go through them too much. The last one on this section is about Andrew Tate. I just put it there on reference for anyone who for any reason is interested in these cases. There's some interesting information there. Where we can go on with is the EU Parliament stuff. And the people think it's like the Matrix Neuralink.
Is this it as well, or is this different?
No, this is just also related. If you want to follow up the whole drama and so on, it's a recommended channel, I would say. And also this one. This is more about the Tate stuff. This is just Discord chats, talking with lawyers and so on.
Okay, but here we go. EU parliamentary mandatory chip implants? Really? You're gonna do that? That seems kind of wild. But I could believe it, I guess. If they're gonna do mandatory vaccines, they could do mandatory chips, right? Like, why not?
Yeah, just to let everyone know. Not too much I can say about it. We talked plenty about it, and also about, I'll say it again briefly, how everyone can enable developer settings on their phone and check out the Bluetooth signals of unidentified MAC addresses coming in, and then just visit your local public square and notice how your phone is gonna have to restart because it's getting overloaded with too many signals to display. Oh yeah, and this one, I don't even know what he's saying exactly. I just, wanted to bring up the whole ridiculousness of the whole thing.
Quadriplegic guy who has the Neuralink implant. He's able to play chess, and he's grateful. Same old story. It's exciting that he's able to like communicate because he's pretty screwed. Other than that, and now he can play chess, and he's pretty good at playing other video games too, right? That's
And
a
I'm
big
happy
one.
for him, and I'm sure it's a good use case for a few
Yeah.
particular
Best
individuals.
case
But
scenario, for sure.
yes, exactly, best case scenario. Yeah, here this one I didn't watch it. I just thought it was related. Let's see where we are on the list. Yes, I think it's related. I didn't watch this one yet, and this one also just recommended to check out. And the last two links, I'm
Oh,
not sure how
the
much
Maury
I can.
Brotherhood of the Sufi. Kind of interesting.
Right here, I can't say much. I just somehow, I guess somebody referenced it. Also, yeah, interesting that it, right, exactly. I remember because there is a song called Bemba. It's a very nice song. And at the very beginning of the song, they actually say, I guess there is no God but Allah, but in Arabic. And since, I have the most basic knowledge, and I was like, oh, such a nice song. And then I noticed at the very beginning, she's actually saying that phrase and then talking Bemba, Bemba. I was like, okay, what is Bemba? And then I just looked it up and I found that this is this particular Sunni sect, of course, also very suspiciously founded at the end of the 19th century, which may as well, make it in a sense part of the quote unquote 19, New World Order structure in some way, shape, or form. But I can't, verify any of that. Okay, here, this is just about sports betting, makes you think about certain allegations about who should or shouldn't bet. And, of course, the whole shenanigans that go on in the background. This is from Arte, which is the, German-French cultural channel. I guess use a VPN, use the link below if you want to be
It's
able to log in from Germany.
hard to stream while doing it at the same time, so you'll have to do it. Sorry. But 23andMe CEO surprised and disappointed by board resignation. Really? How are you surprised?
Yeah, so
Say
this is
what?
interesting because apparently this story came up at a very similar time as the whole Diddy story went viral, let's say. And of course, we have strange situations going on in the Middle East and God knows what else, election season and all of that. But this may be one of the news that maybe got a little bit, not so widely publicized or discussed as maybe some rappers are, because I guess they're not as famous in the public eye. I haven't investigated the story, but I can only suspect, God knows, who collected all the
Well, I
DNA.
mean,
I mean, they officially
there's a
make it
lot
their
of.
business model, right?
I think a big part
Who
of it's
uses
also
it?
Anne wants to take the company private, right? That's a big thing that she's been kind of pushing towards, the same thing Musk was doing. And I think that actually taking companies private tends to be a pretty good thing. I don't think publicly traded companies are very safe. Like you have the worry that someone's going to come in and vote to destroy the company or make it secular and woke so that BlackRock can buy it, right? So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but a private company isn't the worst thing that could happen to them. And the board itself, I think when they resigned, it might have been more about who else is involved with the potential partnership of a private company, which would be like China, right? Or Google or the American military industrial complex, right? That's the probable connection more than I think P. Diddy or something. Oh, unless you're
Oh,
saying P. Diddy's the cover.
right, right. This would be
Right.
the
Okay.
just it can only be
Because it
one of
happens
many
on the same
effects.
day and they're trying to hide this. I think the P. Diddy thing's its own bag because it's like they know that it's a big enough story like the Epstein thing. It's the blue anon Epstein thing. It's like now the made for TV movie version of Epstein for
Yeah,
the
but
Democrats.
whatever may happen there, I mean, it's bad enough if you follow through. And also here, it seems this whole intergenerational thing and, all of that. So it's its own, whatever, terrible story. But still, it's definitely discussed a lot more than all of these directors stepping down and people just even asking the question, what are they doing with my genetics? What's going on? What happened potentially, allegedly, fact checked, of course, to be invalid, maybe during the whole lockdown period, Um, yeah, there have been allegations of extensive surveying, let's say, of human genetic material.
So how long ago did you switch away from Bragg? Because I stopped using Bragg maybe like a year ago when I found out about this.
Yeah, so here I guess I just put this kind of up for fun, let's say, because
This
this
isn't
is
fun at all. This
no, I
sucks.
know.
This is one of the worst things that have happened. I mean, I can't think of another thing worse that's happened to apple cider vinegar in maybe 20 years,
So
except for
what's the
like
special?
maybe cloudy. Like they've made it illegal essentially to make cloudy cider in a lot of countries. So this is
Oh,
the
really?
next. Yeah, it's like you can't even have cloud. This is sad that this is the next
Oh,
thing
you
they're
can
taking away
literally
bread.
see it here that now it's clarified, and before it was literally with the mother. Is that the thing? Is she
Yep.
showing it here?
Yeah, I don't know if she's
Okay.
gonna say that, but you'll
Because
find
that's what they
customers
always
in it.
put on the thing. But why I brought it up is because Bragg's is one of the many Mandela effects, and as some people may know, that's why the show is called the Neuropa. One of the aspects. I'm not from America, but when I went there and stayed for a longer time, I was eating lots of salad, and I deliberately bought. I was looking for, what kind of vinegar can I eat? I knew I'm in America, so I even have to be more careful about what I'm eating, not to eat processed food, shop at the right stores. And this label stuck out to me because it looked kind of badly done compared to all the other, American style, super amazing, marketed out labels and designs. So I took a closer look, was like, oh, this actually seems like a good organic thing, as good as it can get in a supermarket. And that's what I bought. And when I bought it, it said BRAGG' on the label. I had never seen an ad for it. I had never seen the label. I had never even known it existed before I went to the supermarket to look for a suitable vinegar I can buy. And then I bought it at, I guess, I don't want to lie now, but maybe Trader Joe's and maybe one or two other different stores. And it was always BRAGG' on the label. And now this is a Mandela effect. Oh, this is what, no, but not that's not what it looked like, because there was an apostrophe and the label was also layouted a little bit differently. But now officially, supposedly, this label, which I'm pretty sure I saw and bought multiple times, officially never existed. And also retrospectively, so also people getting out their own old bottles and so on, it's now always saying BRAGG on the label. And if that is correct, and I'm not completely delusional, and there's so many other people reporting similar things, then it appears there is some mechanism within this reality, whereas even physical objects or things can be permanently changed retrospectively, whereas at least a sizable part of your population distinctively remembers them to have been differently. And in my case, again, I almost feel kind of like blessed, I want to say, that if I trust my own perception, I can say from my point of view, not knowing what it is exactly, but it is a real phenomenon, because otherwise I wouldn't have, been to a different country, have this fresh, experience of buying something new, seeing it, recognizing it. And 3 months later, the world is telling me this never existed in the way that I bought it. So yeah, that's also always why I like to bring up that story. And because it's kind of ridiculous, because it's a label for apple cider vinegar. I mean, what is this? But that's something I would care about, especially at that point, because I was eating lots of salad. So it's kind of a cool thing.
There's some space timing about bags for sure. Be careful about giving your kids amphetamines. Maybe stop and don't. I'm not a doctor here though, so like if you want, I can't tell you not to.
Oh yeah, me neither. Just read the article. We don't want to make any false claims here, of course. It's
Top
all
neurologist
allegedly.
blows whistle and he suggests that ADHD does not exist and it was invented to hook kids on drugs. It's crazy this guy is saying these things. Who knows if his doctorate's even in anything real, right? He's probably a doctor of quackery. And ADHD is totally real, and giving speed to kids is a miracle. Thank you, God.
Oh, I
Thank you,
always
America.
forget that it's literally like medicalized,
Speed,
patented
bro.
version of the street drugs. They're often in all of these, many
Street
of these
drugs?
medicines.
No,
Yeah.
it's not street drugs. It's
Well,
like
it's
15
worse. I
different
know. Yeah,
kinds
that's the
of
problem.
19th century, early 20th century Weimar Republic Institute eugenicists designed amphetamines, right? These are essentially dextroamphetamine, alpha phenylamphetamine, bromoamphetamine, uh, chloroamphetamine, iodoamphetamine, which is like with iodine. There's 15 or so different kinds of alpha phenylethylamines that they're using. Actually, there's thousands that exist, right? Some of them are psychedelic. Some of them have serotonin molecules attached to them. These are just the 15 or so that are pretty much not fun, not necessarily that fun, but they have a bit of like a serotonin uptake. And so some people seem to enjoy the serotonin uptake. It's not as much as having a serotonin molecule it doesn't have like necessarily the same psychedelic effects, and it's
You
also
mean
more
serotonin
recreational.
uptake inhibitors? Is that what you mean? A reuptake
No,
inhibitor or something else?
actual agonists that so the
Okay.
production of serotonin which flushes your system like ecstasy, because ecstasy is methylene dimethyl alpha phenethylamine, so it's MDMA, whereas there's also MDA, which is methylene diamphetamine, right? And alpha phenethylamine. And so the differences in terms of euphoria versus the amount of increased energy are extreme. So one has extremely more serotonin versus one has higher energy with less serotonin. And so their idea is to have 15 of these different kinds of amphetamines that all produce energy. I mean, and then don't have
I
super
mean,
serotonin
anybody is
uptake.
always told, don't mix and match willy-nilly if you know what you're doing, but
If you know what you're
it's
doing.
patented, I get. I guess.
Yeah, and then give that to
Patented for
5-year-olds
self-destruction.
and 10-year-olds and call it medicine and health. That's what they're doing. And then send those kids to school. Cool. All right. So Japan, why Japanese people are not obese like in the US? Well, for starters, because it's like almost against the law. Not quite, but they'll ask you if you're fat, like, hey, what's up? Do you want to go get therapy? Like, it's like a health thing. They'll like change your diet. The state can take over your life in Japan and make you not fat. That's the thing about Japan.
But at the same time, they have the very prestigious sumo ringer class, where you have an outlet for it, which I think is probably, how should I say, how do you call that? It's like a talismanic encapsulation or something, or maybe what I want to say is like you take a potential detrimental thing and you focalize it in one group, which you also ceremonially exalt in a certain way, and therefore like they have the body mass, so everyone else doesn't feel they need that much. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, they have like they have a body mass index like policing thing. It's not quite as bad as I'm making it sound, but you have to also imagine socially, ideologically, how fat taxes happen. Where you're like, hey, your parent. Imagine you're playing at school, right? And you see some kid, and their kids'
Can you show that
parents.
again? Is that a real thing? What is this?
Just let me just explain this for a second.
Okay.
Imagine you're at school and you see another kid, and the kid's parents smoke. And your parents and our parents are all paying for health care for each other. So really, your parents are costing us more money, right? I think it's very quick to see how it hurts the children for their parents to not get in line and to be like everyone else and to try to be as healthy as possible, because then they're becoming an expense on the prison state, right? Why aren't you doing this? Why don't you do what everyone else is doing? Right? That's kind of the thing. So the fat tax is kind of just this idea that, if you exist to healthy, it makes you fatter to be fatter. It makes you eat more. It destroys your lifestyle. It becomes more expensive. They suggest
Well, I want to know,
estimates.
is this in effect somewhere right now?
I
Something
mean,
along those lines?
ideologically, because people have thought about this, like the first such taxes were induced in 1925 in the United States. Increased tax. Imagine like paying extra for food, right? Is kind of a fat tax. Like it's not like very much to throw a few more French fries in your box, but to say you're fat and you need that as opposed to having just a smaller amount of fries is sort of a fat tax. Realistically, junk food, fat taxes to subsidize more healthful foods is continuations of the fat tax. Unhealthy tax, I think, is the other way to look at it. Unhealthy lifestyle taxes, and this leads into cigarette taxes. This leads into all sorts of things like junk food, fast food, restaurant taxes, sedentary lifestyle, media taxes, right? All these sorts of things. These taxes that exist because it's a worry about what you're going to indebt society by existing. Metabo is the law that we're talking about. Included measurement waist sizes in 2008 to attempt to overcome increasing obesity rates once they hit like 3% or something like that. to reach its goals by shrinking the overweight population by 10% over the next 4 years and 25% over the next 7 years. The government imposed financial penalties on companies and local governments that failed to meet specific health targets through the Metabo law. The country's Ministry of Health argued for the campaign to keep the spread of diseases like diabetes and strokes in check. The Metabo law involved conducting an annual waist measuring check of people aged between 40 and 75, which was administered by employees and local
It's funny. It's
government.
because, Tokyo maybe is a main hub, so they make sure you're thin enough so you don't take up too much space in the Shinkansen, so the economy can keep running.
Yeah, I mean, but there is like also the factor that if you're not having kids in Japan, you gotta stay alive, you know? Like you got strawberry pickers wearing suits. Let's see, Mecha suit, Japan strawberry picking. They have these body suits for 90-year-olds so that they can pick strawberries. Right? Like if you're so old that you can barely walk, and then you
This is like the Gundam Wing Final Fantasy. What's going on?
But what do you do with that? Right? Because you're so old now you can't bend. So you have to wear a Gundam suit so you can pick strawberries at 90.
Yeah,
You can
Gundam
continue
suit
to
with
work.
Neuralink, and it's all gonna be fine. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
So you can't eat fast food. Not in that future. Okay. Is that kind of not the point? Did you have more of a point about this?
No, it's good. It's good. Here, I'm fine with it, But here, what he basically says is that, oh, don't we teach our children to eat healthy food, and they have no problem with it, and they
Who
ask
does
like,
that?
they ask what's your favorite food in school, and the children like say broccoli and stuff, and just like how it is so much of a different cultural perspective, and just shows that, you could, if you want, educate your child and your society differently, and may then
Yeah.
have a different set of problems maybe, but well, just
Yeah.
curious because they always claim, oh no, the children only wants to eat fries and sweets. Well, apparently there it's different how they manage. Maybe something to learn. That's the point I wanted to make.
Okay, well, what about the ceramic water filter?
Oh yeah, not too much I can say about it. Just always like to bring out different, the idea of filtration in general, and that it's possible to do even here. I guess they just use ceramics or something. I'm sure you could probably easily and cheaply reconstruct these things by yourself as well. And just to point out that there is simple natural fabrics and substances and ways how you can filter your water. And essentially what you're doing usually is recreating simply the natural state of water, either by letting it flow through different sediments, by whirling it, anything that makes it kind of, just picture a river or a fresh spring, and anything that would kind of quote unquote make the water remember that simply by recreating an environment, even if it's, kind of artificial. But all of these processes usually help to upgrade the water quality.
Interesting, using nano silver. That's cool. I like this idea very much. Okay. And then ancient bloodlines. How could you? Well, we've done some pretty cool episodes on this, actually. We have a friend who did it. I took the episode talking about the family lines, right?
So they bring up quite a few interesting things here. I think even mentioning the Jesuits and some strange connections. Here they bring up some supposed Iranian bloodline, but also here it's, from what I know from David, it's not exactly clear, how should I say, how consistent they really are for thousands of years, but still. And mainly, I just want to bring up again Professor Hamamoto. There's an older video of his, which for some reason got into the algorithm, which is why it has 600K views now. In the comments, you see all the people commenting like, oh, I just got this recommended. And maybe this was even the day like CERN started up again or whatever. But anyhow, really interesting conversations. And I really hope that in some way, shape or form, you're going to interview with him, because I think he has lots of knowledge and quite a good perspective. And again, I want to say based, but what I basically mean by that is not overly naive as so many academicians are, and also very critical, even there, I believe, of his own university and the strange psyops and recruitment programs going on there, all of that. So he seems pretty aware and pretty cool. And he's still streaming, I guess, regularly now. And now he has this cool beard, as we saw earlier. So I really hope at some point maybe we get to talk to him, or you get to talk with him.
That'd be cool. Okay, then also Lorraine Murray.
Yes, she's the lady basically sitting there. She's talking about the whole, I guess, also nuclear agenda. Of course, as we understand, nuclear power and bombs are a topic unto itself. But I still have to watch this one in particular. But just wanted to point out, and also supposedly that she's maybe gone missing right now or something, or it's not exactly clear what's up with her. So definitely worth at least checking out her website, and her main arguments and points, I think, can be relevant information.
Okay. Her website. Okay, here we go. Interesting. I've not seen her website yet. The ruling elite have been carrying out secret nuclear wars for the purpose of depopulation since World War II under the guise of atmospheric testing for national security, says Lauren Moreau. Nuclear power too cheap to meter and depleted uranium kinetic energy in bullets. Okay. I'll have to check out her work. 13-year-old raised on Bitcoin. Yeah, girl. Get him.
Yeah, so here we're in the Liberty section now. Maybe to lighten it up just a little bit. This I just found really cool. I just had found this, and yeah, very, very eloquent, very
Dude,
smart. And what happens basically when you're born with Bitcoin, let's
this
say,
could be my daughter
and
someday. You know what I mean?
and
This could be your daughter someday. Every one of you, you could raise your kid to be a Bitcoin kid. Do it. That seems right.
and just pretty cool, what understanding you have, and also just giving, great statements. Like she's being asked, oh, you like to learn, or the vice principal wasn't happy with you going to that conference and they claim it's so
Crazy to think
important
Bitcoin's older
because
than her.
yeah, because the important things you learn in school, and she says correctly, oh, actually, I prefer to learn outside of school. Or what a surprise, just I guess
Crazy.
an inspiring example of what happens when you allow someone to develop interest, introduce them to these technologies. How are they using it? What is their perspective on it?
Dude.
Not saying Bitcoin is the silver bullet or
No,
anything,
but like
but
have kids
certainly.
and raise them to be free, free thinkers, I think is the
Oh
idea.
yeah, and even
That's
just the
rad.
idea of having the potential to have her own, account right now, even though she's
Yeah.
not legally allowed to have a regular bank account, but you can have
Right. Good
this,
point.
and just a real life practical example.
But parents constantly have a parent kid account where they have a 401k and they're trying to save money for their kids. So like why not help your kid with a Bitcoin account instead? Like it seems pretty cool. I don't know.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like that's rad. I mean, it's going to be more and more people like this, so be one of them. Raise your kids to be free thinkers. They can make their own choices about it too. That's the other thing. It's like really easy now to like run an app that lets you have wire transfer your money from a bank account to the crypto. So, I don't know.
yeah,
She
and
seems
also
like
even just
stoked.
cool to understand what technologies she's using, for like practical example. And even I guess mentioning the local bakery uses it as well. So that's pretty cool. And I guess if you use the right type of apps, it can actually be very viable to do that, and at least have it as an option, and at least again open up this idea of understanding money, understanding exchange systems. Even just that, I think, is the real benefit here. Whatever we ultimately end up with, or whatever 100 million more psyops are going to be run, and scams and everything.
Oh my god, he
But
totally. I was
oh
about to
yeah,
say. I was
yeah,
gonna
well,
say something like that. Stare at computer development. Exactly. Yeah. No. All right. Like if you want to push your like a non-coin, like you want to show your non-coin, this is not a bad place to do it. Actually, it makes a lot of sense to try to use something that's like
yes.
actually deledgered. But you know what? I think we're all kind of in this. We're bullish for BTC, and we're trying to make the world at least collapse the banking system into BTC. The problem is it's super late into the game. If you're just hearing about this now, like let's be honest, 80% of BTC is in the hands of the banks.
That's the next problem. Yes, and it's still bound to fiat. So we have
Like
100 million more problems, but at least again, the idea of a consensus algorithm, the idea of a technology that is not dependent on a centralized single point of failure, which usually is your government or someone else not trustworthy. So I think philosophically is the real progress we can make. Whatever tech we in the end up with is a other story for me.
is there like a map that like makes it easy to like show Morty? Let me show you Morty in summer. Let me show you. So basically, uh, uh no, not useful.
Oh, but go back. I want to see that chart for a second, the pie
All
chart.
right, I'll do it. But I wanted to show like how much.
I want to see where I'm at. 1 second. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I'm definitely not in the top 1%. But
No.
above 10 Bitcoin. Wow. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
all I
So
can say is I hope that girl's father had a lot of Bitcoin already when she was born. Then, he can have good allowance every month.
But
13 years
USA
later.
owns BTC. How much Bitcoin does the United States? The United States owns 183,000 Bitcoin. So about $12 billion in Bitcoin, right? So China owns BTC. How much does maybe I would argue more. I would argue that China owns about 1%, not 0.9. They probably own about $12 billion worth of Bitcoin as well. I think it's probably 180 to 200,000 Bitcoin as well, right? So then like you have to say like,
And the
how
second
much
question
does
is
the
how many
UK
of
own?
those are really on the blockchain, and how is it calculated with all the exchanges, and who is then really having access
So
to these Bitcoin?
so arguably they say that the UK government owns about
As of
61.
July 19th, am I happy about that?
That's pretty adorable.
Couldn't
So
they have a different date?
The United States government owns supposedly 61,000. I would argue it's double this, right? Like I'm not just trying to be exaggeratory. I think that the United States and Britain and all these countries have at least double what they're talking about because they're holding it through other corporations and through people. And so in England, especially, you have monarchs and you have other things that have access, and they're maybe asset portfolios that are they're literally just a bank company that they own to own their money for them, right? So I'm assuming that in Britain, this is a lot higher of a number too. This probably is more like 180,000. And then let's go back a second. 2.3 million in terms of private people in England owning coin. But what about like Hong Kong, right? Because Hong Kong bankers, right? Hong Kong bankers, not bakers. 25 billion, I think, is something like I've heard recently. So it's like 400,000 bitcoins in Hong Kong that are controlled by Hong Kong banker families. So I mean, like when you start looking at that, and then I want to also think like UBS financial, and then what was the other one? What was the other one that was just recently with Sam Bankman-Fried, who's in jail with P. Diddy right now in the same cell, right? You know that, right?
Come on. I mean, that has to be a joke.
No, I'm not kidding. I thought, sorry. See, like maybe what I need to do is just tell Europeans what's going on in the American like gossip court. But yeah, Sam Bankman-Fried is in the same jail with P. Diddy Combs right now. They put them together. We're assembling a team, bro. We're assembling a team, right? So, and you've heard my story.
Bankman-Fried?
Yeah. Do you remember the Fried? Does everybody remember the Fried? Because FTX, remember the FTX?
Bankman-Fried.
Well, we pronounce it, I think, Fried, right? Isn't it?
Oh, that's what you're saying. I'm saying Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, well, they're going to fry the banker or free the banker. It's really important contextually. I think that's kind of the point here. So this kid's taken over. He was FTX. My conspiracy theory was like, hypothetically, imagine that you are some group that is an intelligent group with some amount of agency, to make decisions in the world. You hear what I'm saying here? And they put like $5 billion into a thing. How do you do that? Well, really all you need to do is put like $1 billion into a thing. And then you advertise it on the other things you own, like YouTube and whatever, like it has $5 billion, because people will buy into it. As soon as you have an illusion like that, I mean, if you have enough money to start it off, then you can turn it into a Ponzi scheme. So then everyone pours their legitimate money into the thing, which actually brings value to the thing, because now you can study all those people. Like, who are these people that are putting money into a thing? Why do they want to buy an alternative kind of money? Is there a reason they don't like to use normal money? Let's study them, right? And now all of a sudden you have an in because having how much money did we show earlier? Like 8 billion, 12
A
billion.
pump and dump honeypot scam, or what is this?
Yeah, it's not just it's a pump and dump honeypot scam because the honeypot is designed to show you, oh, there's really just all these people that have small amounts of Bitcoin, but they're inside of a giant bazaar that's controlled by one group, the same way you're all on YouTube, the same way you're all on Gmail or something like that, the AOL kind of thing. So a bunch of people are in this giant $5 billion pool that's controlled by a group. Who's that group? Is it some sort of a group that wants to study everyone who wants to use cryptocurrency? That seems like the most obvious thing, right? I think that's kind of the deal. All right. Well, was there anything else? We talked about P. Diddy, how he's in a cell. Largest corporations that hold it. That's another thing that's important. Look at the corporations that hold. Tesla has $500 million in coin as well. I think this is going to be, the thing is that the next generation is going to be these corporatist states that emerge, right? 9 billion by MicroStrategy. Who do you think that is? MicroStrategy. All right. We'll have to look into that another time. I think it's about time for the morning to begin. It is 8:20 in the morning, UTC +2. Hope you're having a good morning.
Indeed. Thank you so much. I think we can leave it here. Anyone who wants to know more, check out the link list. There's only one more thing I got to show you, which of course is fake news. First of all, I have a cool image from the Egyptian pyramids. And then, did you know that the Soviets built Stonehenge? Of course, they didn't really, only in some alternative history. But I'm bringing this up because of recent interview I did with David Ewing Jr., where he's talking about Irish and Gaelic and Druid history, and that all relates together. So anybody who's interested about that, check it out on my channel. Aside from that, all I can say, thank you, Andreas. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe and support Exertus. And yeah, have a good day.
Ciao.